OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
I'm a little teapot short this time.
Good morning, OTB AM. You've joined us mid-nursery rhyme conversation. It's 7:30. It's Friday morning. You're very welcome along. We're with you until 10 this morning. I hope you're safe and you're warm wherever it is you are at this morning, because it is miserable out there, and I'm sure those conditions are replicated around the country as well. There was snow outside my door this morning, lads, so I presume...
So don't just move on as if I was just randomly talking about nursery rhyme. There was a reason for this. We were talking about nursery rhymes.
What's the greatest of all the nursery rhymes?
Yeah,
was the conversation.
We were power ranking the nursery rhymes. I was saying Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I mean, there's so many
for obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons. Space Geek. So that was my one growing up.
Colm.
I just want to go back to Humpty Dumpty, because I couldn't remember if he had a great or a big fall.
Definitely great fall.
Great fall.
But then we're to that was a great fall.
Oh, great fall.
Good fall.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive.
Yeah.
There's a clip that you can at any point just clip that up and away we go. That's my favourite. It's a bit like
I don't know that one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I threw it back again.
They wouldn't have it in Cork.
Why did you throw it back? Because it bit my finger. So which finger did it bite? This little finger on the right.
Yeah.
And you played both roles of the conversation.
Oh, you just talked to yourself, yeah.
Old MacDonald had a farm. Another
mainstream, a bit MSM for me, like.
A bit MSM, right?
You like your cult classics for nursery. Well, I suppose you gave me a cult classic there because I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Give me more nursery rhymes there.
Mary had a little lamb.
Yeah.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout, which I've already, of course, pointed out.
I would have expected this level of SHIT talk on like Monday morning after the...
I know, we were
match.
about to get into it, and then Hannon came back to it, you know.
He did. The fact that like you've something to be crowing about, both of you, after the game last night, of course, I would have thought that you'd have been straight in with that, but no, nursery rhymes it is.
Nursery rhymes, yeah.
So everything's, we just forget about last weekend now. Everything's fine. Now they're back on track. Bruno Fernandes, the greatest captain of all time.
No.
Look at that goal he scored, and then also nearly like broke a man's leg in half.
The highlight of my night was Wout Weghorst appearing to be almost in tears at the emotion of scoring a goal.
Was that what was that emotion about?
Relief.
As a striker, he hadn't scored in ages.
He scored once. It was the League Cup semi-final first leg away to Nottingham Forest. He scored similar type goal. Similar distance, but went in differently.
And his first goal at Old Trafford for United, in front of the Stratford end.
Right, because I wasn't sure if he looked as if he couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo last night, and I wasn't sure if it was just within the game that he was suddenly like,
he gets a lot of criticism. I mean,
he was doing okay with his chance. He was getting blocked. So one of the shots went wide for a goal kick, but then it appeared in the
one
replay.
Of them, he somehow managed to kick over the crossbar from 2 yards out.
Luckily, he was offside, so that
thankfully.
wouldn't have counted.
But it was a bad miss.
Yeah, that was horrendous. Yeah. He scored the same number of goals as Richarlison this season. 2 goals, both cup competitions. But the thing about Weghorst is he plays all the time.
Yeah.
Like I think he started every game he's available for.
Is that an indictment?
Yeah, I think Ten Hag is just so adamant that he wants to play the target man. And Anthony Martial's missing.
Is he? He's this for him was probably success, but like he's looking a bit like a cult hero for United.
A bit like Adrian O'Gara 3 years ago. Remember O'Gara
he's not
developed.
A cult hero.
He did.
Adrian O'Gara.
Yeah, at the time I remember people thinking, geez, pleasantly surprised by O'Gara, especially in the Europa League. He was brilliant. But then he just kind of faded away, I guess. But I mean, like, you nearly forget Zlatan Ibrahimovic's influence on Manchester United, because he faded away as well, but he was so brilliant in his...
Like a cult hero is like...
Which actually culminated in trophies.
Andre Kanchelskis. I know Solskjaer's a bit more than a cult hero, I think.
That's a good question. I'm not sure that he is. No, he's not. How would you upgrade him?
Scoring the winner in the Champions League final, like that's a...
But like the super sub moniker dictates that he's never going to be like a club legend. Sorry, he is a club legend, but maybe that's the answer.
Does a cult hero...
Brian McClare.
Yeah, I suppose if you speak to people that were alive and well during the McClare era, they would say he's more than a cult hero.
He wasn't Mark Hughes.
He was quite
Cantona.
central to everything. But does a cult hero, is it defined by essentially a player who plays above themselves consistently? Is that what you think when you think of a cult hero?
My definition of a cult hero would be somebody who the fans are trying to say, we love you really, even though you're not great.
I would have thought it was more praiseworthy than that.
No, I don't think. I think like a Liverpool cult hero couldn't be Xabi Alonso, but it could be Luis Garcia. Do you know?
Garcia is probably a good example because he scored so many important goals during that Champions League run.
True.
Like the Juventus volley at Anfield.
I think you have to be a little bit
Chelsea
not crap,
goal.
but just on a
That's why
level
I
below.
would go with that, Shane. Yeah.
Kanchelskis was a very good player, but he's a cult hero.
We have the ultimate one here. Live chat, Emma Carroll. Divock.
Divock
Origi
Yeah,
for Liverpool.
great shout.
That's it. Like scoring. How many crucial goals did Origi score for Liverpool over? There's probably half a dozen. Like Merseyside derby, he used to flourish in.
Yeah.
Barcelona, famous finish from Trent Alexander-Arnold's corner. Yeah, that's a cult hero, isn't it?
Yeah, fact.
I'm so reluctant to open this little can
I
of
know what
words
you're
from
gonna say.
Shifty lad here, but good morning to you, Shifty. Jisung Park was a cult hero.
Euston Park was slightly above the
I
status
think
of
so,
cult
yeah.
hero.
I think he was at one point, but then he became so important to the side.
Well,
that
Shane
he
is
went
going to say
beyond.
that anyway. Of
An
course.
imperative player.
No, around 08-09 when Ferguson left him out of the Champions League squads.
Yeah.
In the final, cult hero then. But I think he actually became so central to United.
Yeah, crucial
in
to
bigger
South
games.
Korea, but getting to World Cup semi-final as well.
That's
You
it,
know, this
yeah.
is a player with talent. Big game player.
On last night's games, the first 3 goals at Old Trafford were fantastic.
Oh yeah,
Iose Perez on loan from Leicester City.
Oh, yeah.
half
Real
volley,
Betis.
brilliant half volley. It was a half volley, that one. There's no argument here.
Well, the one thing that we...
That was a volley.
Can of worms.
No.
The one thing that we
half-
haven't
across it
actually
so
had any
beautifully.
debate about was what constitutes a half volley. Everybody's agreed
that
on
was.
that. There was no...
Yeah, but some people were adding like Wayne
Oh,
Rooney
there was
was a
all
half
sorts
volley.
of stuff going on, Shane. There was people saying the ball had bounced off the ground and was still a volley. There was all
Yeah,
sorts
which
of...
Which Kevin
madness
Kilbane
going
agreed with, as you might have heard during
I
the
know,
week.
but he's a bit detached from football over there. We have to cut him some slack.
I'm gonna say 110 caps gives him a leg to stand on. Personally speaking,
You
Yeah.
look like you're about to say something there, or...
Oh, I'm trying to think back of the 3
Staring
goals myself.
wistfully up to
Yeah.
the ceiling
Well,
there.
the Marcus Rashford's first goal. I mean, he's in such brilliant form that you'd actually take for granted a finish like that. But what a finish!
Brilliant.
Like Claudio
Brilliant goal.
Bravo, didn't cover himself in glory too after Manchester City, but really could do nothing with that. 39 years of age, flew by him. And just even the touch to settle himself and the Betis defender falling on the ground. 25 goals this season for Rashford. It's 5th in the Europa League. Remember this time last season, people were saying he could go if he wants.
yeah. He only scored 5 goals last season or something.
Eric Ten Hag's under a little bit more scrutiny this last week, but what he's done with Rashford is remarkable.
John Claffey says Henrik Larsson's time at United. I don't know that you see, cult hero for me.
Yeah,
you
that's
actually need to be
different.
there for an extended period of time as well.
No, I would say I don't think time is too important. It's what you do with your time. But I think with Larsson, it's an interesting one with Larsson. I don't think it's quite a cult hero. I just think he did well. Do you know, I just
was a good
kind of
player.
think that's where it starts and ends with Larsson at
Nigel
United.
Gallagher says, I think Weghorst probably knows that his days are numbered at that level, so scoring a goal for United in the Europa League is a few boxes ticked.
That's why I was thinking when he touched the Anfield sign, he probably won't play there again. So I'll do it while I can.
Ridiculous.
He's living the dream, Wout Weghorst. He's playing at a level above him, and the teammates really like him, and he does provide a service up front. Like, he's not a bad player by any means.
The biggest day in Weghorst's life was the day Eric Ten Hag, a Dutchman, was named Manchester United manager, because that was the blessing that he got. That was the moment that he became a future Manchester United player.
Yeah.
Do you know? So he's living the dream. Let him at it. And look, he does need to score more
Let him
goals.
at
Let him at it,
His
lads.
contract is not up until the end of the season, and then it's like see what happens. He'll end up the Emma's Divock Origi shout. That's probably how he'll end up. Like,
He won't end up that
pick that
well thought of. He needs to
no,
score
sorry,
more
I don't mean in
goals.
that. I don't mean in that regard at all. I mean more in terms of
Yeah.
he'll be on the bench next season.
Yeah.
They'll give him another year because he's done half a job for them. He'll end up
you
making
think so?
10 appearances, play a bit of League Cup.
That's what happened to Agallo. To go back to that example, he got his contract extended. I can't see Weghorst staying beyond. I suppose it's what happens in the summer and who else they get in.
If they sign Kane or
Yeah, geez.
Osman or whatever. Yeah.
We're getting a few shouts in here. John O'Shea, Darren Fletcher,
I thought he's
Anderson.
Where the John O'Shea shout? See, John O'Shea was a brilliant player for United.
Yeah.
And look, that's going to open a floodgate of a million more comments of he was an average player in an unbelievable team, but he was really good at United for a couple of years.
What's fun with O'Shea? He started off
And then
brilliantly.
he didn't hang around.
When he played left back in about 02-03 when he broke into the team, and he was excellent. Sylvester moving to the centre with Ferdinand, but often fine after that. Then he got moved around, like you say. First, he played in every single position, which is remarkable in itself. He won everything. But I think with O'Shea was
Could
that
say O'Shea was versatile, maybe. I mean, is that a
I think his style was so awkward looking.
Yeah.
That it made him look like a worse player than he actually was. You know, because he was quite cumbersome in possession. It was just the way he moved. It didn't look very natural, but in fact he was a brilliant player. And I'd say he's well beyond cult. But he was never great.
Paulo Di Canio, Darren Coy says that's a good shout. Like he's a cult. He's the definition of a cult hero.
Oh
isn't
no,
he?
I think he's one of West Ham's greatest players of the modern era. I think that's way beyond cult.
You think so?
I think so, yeah. I suppose it's quite subjective, isn't it?
Maverick. He's a maverick then.
Yeah, Maverick's different.
Maverick and cult hero are
Yeah.
different.
Right.
Gabriel Ainsey. Oh God, no.
We're going to be coming back to this. I'm sure over the course of the show,
Yeah.
people will be in contact.
But the Real Betis should have gone 2-1 up before half time.
Yeah,
They hit the post, and David De Gea's distribution was dreadful all night. He looked
His
shell shocked
kicking
from
was
Anfield.
brutal. Yeah.
Really poor. And I think United did okay. I think Betis were excellent in the first half, and it is actually a shame for the contest that they fell away so significantly in the second half, because I think United had it a bit too easy, and I would have loved if Betis had scored that goal where the ball hit the post just before half time to go 2-1 up. I would have loved to have seen United's reaction, because that would have made the second leg so much more interesting.
That's an unusual comment from a United fan.
No, I just like to see an interesting
Agree.
challenge.
I mean,
I'm not really talking about it as a fan. I'm just talking about it. I think it would have been an interesting study.
so,
to see what would
you're
have
at
happened to United.
hypothetically, you're at a Cork Limerick All Ireland hurling final. The game is
No, I would
Cork
have
are
thought
up by a
Cork to win.
point. Oh, I'd like Limerick to score now, just to
No,
Yeah.
make it interesting
Bizarre.
here. Do you know?
no,
Just
that's a
the
totally
narrative.
different.
It wasn't the test going
reason.
like? Wasn't the test being? As you say, I wouldn't say it was dominant necessarily, because Betis were very much in the game in the first half, but like going 1-0 up and looking as if there was every possibility they could go 2-0 up, and then going 1-1, and it'd been a bit of a reality check. And given what happened last weekend, the doubt could very easily start to set. Was that not the test that they actually
I don't
bounced
think it
back
would have been
from
any
that
harm to go
significant-
behind, to be honest, because I think a draw is a different level.
There wouldn't be any harm to go behind.
I don't think so.
That's very
I
unusual,
just would have wanted to see the second half reaction. I don't think it's unusual at all. I think it made a far more interesting game. I think when United made it 2-1, I just didn't fancy Betis getting back into
By
it.
the way,
after that.
Anthony doesn't know how to score a normal goal.
Oh my God!
He can
that's
only
ridiculous
score
goal.
worldies, and he also scores the same goal every time. And
Yeah.
yet he basically says to the defender, "I'm going to cut in on my left foot now and curl one, but I'm telling you I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to do it."
He's like Arjen
Can't stop me.
Robben slowed down, isn't he?
Yeah, he just scores the same goals. I'm sure I was in Old Trafford when he scored the same against Barca. No, it was a lower finish into the bottom left corner, but he just does that constantly. I'm still frustrated by him. I think a lot of United fans are, but has that in the locker.
ML89 on YouTube makes a very good point, and I'm assuming that he's talking about John O'Shea here too. Irish United fans, he's a club legend. To the rest of the world, he's probably a cult hero. He's Darren Fletcher level. A lad Fergie liked, so kept him and knew he'd fill a gap.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oscars weekend, by the way. I presume you'll both be up burning the midnight oil. So it'll be dominating your chat on Monday's show.
Yeah. I was up late last year with the brother for some reason watching. I could have been watching UFC or something, and then we got news of the Will Smith slap. We were like, what's going on here? Will
Click that on.
Smith's got up on stage. We were like, this is obviously this is a staged performance. And then we quickly realised, no, this absolutely is not staged. This has got a bit of heat behind it.
Well, we're surely going to have a few Oscar winners on Monday morning to talk
You'd
about.
hope
You'll
so.
be lauding.
Did you see Chris Rock's special on Netflix? He addresses it.
Saw the clip, yeah.
What's he saying?
Gets very angry.
Was he?
Yeah, I mean the comedy goes out the window. He gets so angry that he
awkward.
messes up one of his jokes. And he's
does.
like, I messed that up.
Is this a
And he
stand-up
keeps it
show?
going. Yeah, it was a live streamed
Yeah.
Netflix special, so you can watch it back. And it was interesting.
Awkward, I think.
I mean, you listen to the start of it and you're on kind of his team. You're like, yeah, fair play, Chris. And then the more he talks, I'm like, okay,
Doubles
I'll
down.
hang it back now a bit.
Yeah.
He's no better than Will Smith for doing it, from what he says, I think.
Yeah.
What are we thinking
Personally.
about the new logo?
Yeah, the Irish football. What is it?
Ireland
Irish
There we go,
football.
there on
It
the
is
screen.
Ireland football. I really like the logo. The Ireland football thing doesn't make sense unless they're if they were going to use the same and say Ireland hockey, Ireland badminton, and use the same one and just change the word at the bottom, then I'd kind of understand it. Have a bit of uniformity to our Irish sports, but it looks a bit strange. The Ireland football part.
It's a logo you'd see in a bar in Boston.
Yeah. Always sunny in Philadelphia.
I think
That's the vibe of it.
so. Take the shamrock out of it for a second, right? I think all the other stuff is really nice. There has been a bit of a debate online about maybe it should have been Era across the top of it. I've sort of a slightly weird relationship with Era in that
Yeah.
I don't know quite from an official point of view where that's coming from. But regardless, I like that outer circle. I like the two dots either side of it, and I like all that stuff that's going on. I would totally agree with the shamrock. I think it looks like somebody they jumped on some AI bot and went, "Hey, we're designing a new Irish logo. What do you think should go in the middle?" I think a shamrock should go in the middle, and here's what that should. It looks like a very computer-generated image.
I think it should be a shamrock, shouldn't it?
It should be, but I just think that particular shamrock is just, it's very it looks like a very computer-generated image. as
What else
opposed
you
to-
put in the middle? The spire, maybe.
No, I think you could have put a shamrock in there, just get somebody to
Right,
hand
draw it.
or something like that brings a bit of life to it.
I didn't mind the shamrock, I have to say. I think generally speaking, it's a nice mix of green, white, and orange.
I like it.
It's a nice symbol. Yeah, it's the wording that people are giving out a bit, but I mean, people get used to things, don't they? Ireland football, I get used to that.
Yeah. It's not bad.
So Ireland football is what now? We're saying Ireland football now because they've changed some of their handles online and stuff. So Ireland football aspect of it is the
separate to the FAI.
So that's the men's national team and the women's national team.
I believe so. And the FAI is more the administrative aspect of it.
It'll help to get in the sponsors. The corporate end of things will hopefully take a boost now, because no one wants to really sponsor with the FAI's image at times. But Ireland football is separate to the FAI now. They're two different. It's almost like the football and the corporate side are different entities. So it's probably a wise move on the FAI's behalf.
But they need to start fresh. They need to attract commercial interest. They really do need to start again. Like, I'm always skeptical of like a new era, a brand new era, when it's exactly the same institution. But in this case, I think it needs to be done. But also, there's so much goodwill towards this Irish team in the large. Like, the attendances show that a lot of people want this team to do well. I know a lot of people are skeptical about the management. But I think besides that, I think there's a lot of goodwill towards the players certainly coming through. Like, it is an exciting time for Irish football, regardless of who's in charge. So look, it's definitely moving in the right direction. But it was like the nadir of the end of 2019. It's not too hard to go above that, you know. And now what are we? Just over 3 years on, and it's looking a lot better. I don't mind this personally. I don't mind the new look.
Ash, it's grand.
That's Colm's way of saying it's not. I like it.
Yeah,
I don't mind it.
It's good. I do want to mention before we move on to anything else. Sporting 2, Arsenal 2 last night in the Europa League. Arsenal got a very fortuitous second goal from a deflection. However, a man that was discussed earlier on the show this week, very unexpectedly on Monday morning after the match had happened, Gabriel Martinelli, is he world class? A debate ensued between Nathan Murphy and Daniel Harris. Well, last night he nearly scored one of the world-class European goals. I don't know if anyone's for anyone who hasn't seen this, he ran half the pitch. I think he took on about 4 Sporting players, and just when he should have taken a shot, he tried to do one more. He went round the keeper, but his angle was cut off, and that was the end of the goal opportunity. But it would have been incredible. Lucas Moura nearly scored a very similar goal for PSG before his Spurs days. I think he actually did even better again, ran the whole pitch, and I think he hit the post or something like that. That's how close you are to legendary status. If Martinelli had scored that goal last night, right after Nathan had said this guy's world class, or potentially so, would have made Nathan Murphy safe. That's another Imro secured.
Because it was a bad night for Nathan Murphy when Bruno Fernandes shows up and has a probably man of the match performance.
And look, his captaincy wouldn't be in question last night if you just based it on that game. He wasn't given out. He wasn't gesticulating widely when his teammates gave the ball away.
I don't know if I mentioned earlier on, he didn't really break a man's leg though.
He did.
Absolutely. He should have been sent off.
Was it Richard Dunn?
It was,
made the point, or was it Damien Delaney? I can't remember, but somebody said if that had been done to him, imagine the reaction.
Yeah.
Actually, that was a very good point.
Yeah, that's fair. But like,
an awful whinger.
He is, but he like visibly toned it down last night. It'll be interesting to see if he maintains that. I'm sure he played last night as if he's very aware of the criticism that he's gotten the last week.
There was a discussion in the office between a few of us this morning. Which professional footballer would you most like to, like, you know, shoulder? Give a good fair shoulder.
That was the wording, yeah.
Was that it?
Tone down a little bit maybe. But Bruno Fernandes, I'd say for 19 out of 20 fans of clubs in the Premier League will be the pick. Jordan Pickford was a name mentioned. Richarlison. Andy Robertson, I think, is another one that winds opposition fans up.
I don't know. He's too... There's a bit of crack about him.
There's a bit of crack about him, surely. He's not on the...
Like, there's a lot of redeeming factors.
For sure. Yeah. But Harvey Elliott was another one.
He seems harsh.
Pickford?
Yeah.
But he winds everyone up, doesn't he?
No, he just has his reputation for overreacting to any incident at all that happens around his goal. But it's kind of funny. Yeah, I wouldn't have any bad will towards him.
No.
I had to pick one, actually.
By the way, I want to let people know that we've had some good comments in already, and for the best comment today, am I right? Is this correct? For the best comment today,
you started it now.
No.
But you tell people about it.
For the best comment today, you're going to pick yourself up a copy of. Is that now right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you've said it now.
Girls in Green is a brand new book, and it's the brainchild of Stuey Byrne, often of this parish, and Seana Cooke, sometimes of this parish, two Shelburne legends, Seana former Ireland international. It's called Girls in Green. It's a colouring book. It says add some colour to the Irish women's football team and their path to the World Cup. It's from the publishing house Game We Love, and it's a really lovely production. There's loads of stuff in there, little stories to sort of describe the pictures. It's really nice, and it tells the story of how Ireland made it to the World Cup and a few other little bits and pieces as well. Some inspirational quotes. This is going to be a big hit in my house, I know that for sure. If you're interested in picking up a copy, best comment today between now and 10 this morning is going to win themselves, whether Colm wants it or not.
It's only one of 100, isn't it?
Copy of this.
Limited edition.
It is a limited edition, and we are going to have Stuey and Seana in studio a little bit later on as well to discuss a little bit more of that.
They'll sign it for us.
So, best comment of the day, Shane. You can be the arbiter.
Right.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
What the best comment of the morning is. Here's what else is coming up between now and 10 this morning. We've Ronan O'Gara standing by. We're going to chat to him about obviously the latest weekend of Six Nations rugby. Pretty interesting weekend to look ahead to as well. Noz Choudry is going to join us. He was with us last Friday. What a week it's been if you're a Manchester United fan, which, as he told us last week, he's not a football fan, he's a Man United fan, and he's going to pick over the bones of last night, and I'm sure we might dip back into last weekend as well. Alan Quinlan again will preview the Ireland-Scotland game. Stewie Byrne and Seana Cooke will be with us in studio at 9:10 to discuss this. We might also pepper them a little bit around the League of Ireland and a few more bits and pieces as well. So we're also going to have the Friday Firepit, I should mention too. Have we decided topics for that yet, or are they still in the kindling?
Colm knows them there, does he?
Yep.
So, you're keeping
do you want to like,
cards close to the chest?
Go on, throw something.
No, we'll talk about a few interesting topics, no doubt. Jerseys, perhaps, on the back of the new logo. Favourite jerseys. Send in your favourite jerseys. Could be any sport, doesn't have to be football. Favourite jerseys throughout the years. Could talk about that all day. Also, if you could relive an amazing sporting moment, what would it be? Sporting match.
And if you could get a tattoo, I want to do this one as well if we have time. If you could get a tattoo of a famous sporting quote, I have one in mind already. What tattoo would it be? Or what the quote would it be, rather? Also, in honour of Stewie Byrne coming in, send in your jokes.
Send in your jokes.
Yeah.
That's you scouting around, workshopping what your next tattoo is going to be.
Exactly, yeah, 100%.
So something really long, ideally.
If someone sends in a really good suggestion, I'll make the promise that I'll actually get the tattoo.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's
big.
a departure.
And I'll film the whole process.
Where are you going to get it? Where in your body are you going to get it done? Specific about
Maybe
that.
somewhere on my arm, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's a good quote, I have one in mind, but I'll see what people's reaction to it later on is.
Okay. It's probably a Malachy O'Rourke quote, is it? Or?
It's not. Come on,
You could just get Malachy O'Rourke's name.
Up Monaghan, boy. Farney Army, yeah.
Colm, it's been such a delight.
Thank you
in your
so much
company
for
over
having
the last
me.
20 odd minutes. Thanks a million for coming in.
Thanks. You make it so easy, and I hopefully see you again down the line.
Yeah.
OTBAM with Gillette Labs. We get the Ultimate Shave or Your Money Back Neon Night Edition available now, and as I said, lots to come. We're going to kick things off with Ronan O'Gara. Good morning, Ronan.
Morning. How are you, boys?
How are you getting on? The weather must be pretty good over there because it's miserable here.
Oh, it's freezing. Yeah. I'm not over there though. I snuck away for 3 days to. We'll test your geography now. To Tagazoot.
Tagazoot.
Yeah. Well, we have to keep going now because you don't know where I am.
Is it? Sounds like sort of French, almost like Moroccan.
Getting distracted here by Alan Quinlan outside.
Very,
7 up
very
10.
warm. Well done. You got it in one.
All right.
Where'd you say, Morocco?
Yeah.
Oh, good shout.
Making my debut in Morocco at 46 years of age. So
Jesus.
Have you?
Interesting place. Only arrived when last night, is it? I have to go home Sunday morning. So, blast the sun, yeah. Blast the sun.
Blast the sun. I thought you might have declared. You might have done like a what's his name from Munster, whose name is totally got out of my head. Ben Healy.
Yeah. Would you've always? I always wonder that with travelling. Like you seem like you strike me as a man who would like to travel, Rog. But I suppose when you're a rugby player and you're talented at 21, you don't get to do the J1 and the Interrail and all that sort of thing. You miss out on a few things.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's very consistent with a lot of mindsets of playing too. You know, I've been around the world yet I've seen none of it because you go bus to training ground to hotel, bus training ground. Wednesdays was a day off. A lot of the lads actually, in fairness to them, went and got to see things on their day off. But Wednesday's a big kicking day for test kickers, you know. So that's your one focus where you can, I suppose, get the work in because it's not too late in the week to tweak something, and you need to get repetition in. So Wednesday, yeah, I could have organised myself most definitely to go kick in the morning and go enjoy yourself in the afternoon, but it was kind of more back to the hotel and lock yourself up in the room and pretend you're preparing well, which obviously isn't the case with hindsight.
Stick on a couple of episodes of Friends or whatever. Yeah.
So you have 2 weeks before the next game, is that it? And so just
well, not now. Sure, 1 week is gone, would you believe? So there's no top 14 this weekend, no top 14 the following weekend, and then back into top 14, and then Europe the following week. So it's getting exciting now. It's getting close to elimination in both competitions, obviously. So that's when it becomes interesting.
Well, look, given you're away, we thanks for taking the call because I'm
Thank you, in Morocco.
Say, listen, lad, you can take a break this week. So let's get into it. Obviously, with the Scotland match and Finn Russell particularly, because we've chatted to you with you about him a lot over the last couple of years, and what's the nature? Do you still have a contact with him? I know there was a bit of a relationship there at some point.
Yeah, from playing in France, obviously, or two foreigners, obviously, I never played there, but I'm coaching there, so he would have been friends with, or is friends with Donnacha Ryan and Simon Zebo and all the racing guys and Mike Prendergast. But what's good in France, actually, before the games, if you play at 9 o'clock, you'd meet them for coffee the day of the game, just to chat. And so when we went up, La Rochelle went up to racing, I met him, and he's someone that's very easy to speak to, very friendly, and he was obviously in a little bit of no man's land and wondering where he may end up, and he's obviously an attractive proposition to try and sign, but Jimmy, the discussions didn't get off the ground, and the fact that I wouldn't have a budget to sign Finn Russell at club level, so we had a bit of a joke and a laugh about one or two things, and then he goes on, but you can you can see, I suppose, his strengths and his weaknesses in a lot of games, but his upside is huge, and his downside is it can be devastatingly disappointing, but is someone that you'd like to work with? Yes, he is. I think he saved the Lions tour. That's quite a big statement, but he alone, probably, when he came into it, he saved that, because it was a COVID tour which had completely fallen for the style of rugby that was played, and also the lack of atmosphere in the game. But he came in and he played heads up rugby, and I think he saved the face of rugby in that tour for me.
I think he's like £1 million a year at Bath. I don't know if that's how accurate that is, but I think that was a number.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. It's a lot of money for one player.
You want to be selling a lot of coffee for that.
Yeah, you do, exactly. And I think the way it's made in England, isn't it? In the Premiership, though, there's two players who escape the salary cap, and they're known as marquee players. So you can pay them exactly what you want and how you like. So there's obviously golden rules for certain players, and that's the way it is. So that's no fault of Finn Russell's. He's accepting a contract he's been offered, so more power to him. Do you just throw it out to him because it'd be a great fit? I mean, imagine the excitement of him playing in a Ronan O'Gara team. Do you just throw it out there by way of like half grin, sort of? I mean, we could do this if you were up for it. No, and exactly, it can very much happen. Happen very quickly, but. The major stumbling block is the guys and competitors want to play rugby and they want to enjoy themselves, and the finance is another component that's very important, because it's not like soccer, obviously, that guys have to continue working when they're finished their playing days, but the difference between what I had potentially available and what he merits or warrants or would be a respectful offer wasn't even close, so you can't make an offer. You touched on just a little bit earlier on there when you mentioned about his sort of I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but maybe I might summarise it as a consistency bit with his
performances. He seems to be in an unbelievable vein of form at the minute in terms of the consistency aspect of things. Have you noticed that, or what do you put it down to? And leading on from that, how do we stop him?
Yeah, I think I've probably been, because I'm over here, but like, you got to understand, everyone has a snapping point, and I think he's very close to it. He played a game last Saturday night, and it finishes close to midnight, which is a really, really, really important club game for his club. But I think that's, for me, is when you know the player. So when you understand what goes through the head of a test player in Six Nations, he doesn't want to be next or near the club game. And he's earned the right to pick his games, and the fact that he wants to play his best rugby for Scotland. But you can imagine he's not going to say, because his club is paying his wages, that I'm not up for this. But like, he had a very good 50 minutes against Toulouse and then kicked 4 out of 4. And then the last 50 minutes, because of his workload up to then, he's probably one of the only players in the championship that's playing test game, club game, test game, club game, on the bench club game, test game, club game. You know, his workload is double, triple, and then you've got to factor in travel over and back to camp in Scotland, and so essentially his performance completely dipped in the last 20 minutes in the Toulouse game, and he missed 3 kicks at goal, which probably comes down to fatigue, and he also missed a kind of match point, shall we say, a penalty to Racing 40 metres out from the Toulouse line. He was aggressive with his kick, but too aggressive, and missed touch and goal, scrum back 4 minutes to go. Massive release of pressure. The question I was probably asking in my head is that he is a very special player, but does he need to be on the pitch at that stage? I know the Racing number second choice 10 isn't as good, but with his workload, I think it probably would have been a little bit smarter to have him removed, because he's, like all players, the Six Nations is a very, very special tournament, and players really prioritise that.
It's funny, Ronan, like Finn Russell for me probably typifies the importance of the out half coach relationship. Like himself and Gregor Townsend have fallen out many times, and yet here they are at the pinnacle of the Six Nations. And Finn Russell is playing brilliantly well. Like, it doesn't surprise me to hear that you get on so well with him. Like, there's almost a bit of a Ronnie O'Sullivan about him. There's a cheek and a glint in the eye. So there's a bit of something else with Finn Russell, and yet he's hyper focused when he needs to be.
That's a very good comparison, I think. In terms of the talent, obviously he doesn't have the trophies to back that up. Because Ronnie O'Sullivan is the best of the best. No,
it's a fair point.
So that's a Dan Carter, But talent-wise, I think, I would agree with you. And probably where I think, and the big difference he's made in the last 24 months is probably consistency of performances. I think when he went off probably form in the past, it was probably for periods of game. When he goes off form at the minute, it's for little moments in the game. And that's the way he plays, and I think that's okay. But I agree, I think once he feels he has your trust, I think, which he probably didn't have with Gregor Townsend up to probably this campaign, you can see that he's a very, very interesting player to have in your group, and that was proven when he was working with Mike Prendergast in Racing. They had a fantastic relationship, still do, and you could see that. Finn at times was unplayable in the top 14 because of, I suppose, the mindset Mike was able to create to have Finn happy in his mind.
Andy Farrell could do worse, from what you're saying, than pick up the phone to Mike Prendergast this week and look.
No, but we're spent 10-15 minutes, and all we're doing is talk about Finn Russell in Scotland. There's so many players like that in the Irish team that we can talk about for 10-15 minutes. I think that's probably a key point. Where you look at the team Ireland are going to pick this weekend, and it's such quality, the 23, and for me, there's hysterics about Owen Farrell being dropped for England. Owen Farrell hasn't been dropped for England. Owen Farrell is going to finish the game, and as a coach, I can tell you sometimes you want to finish with your best 15. So this little hullabaloo about, he's lost his place, I wouldn't read it at all like that. I just think, England are looking to start one way, and I think they're looking to finish another way. And you've got two gems in Farrell and Smith, and I agree. I think two of them starting the game is maybe not the way to go, but I think you'll see both of them have a big say on Saturday. But all you can see in the lead up to the game is that they've gone for Smith over Farrell, but that may not be the thinking,
It's very interesting that you will put it that way, and a hullabaloo is of course the right way of putting it. And because I'm looking at the Borthwick interview going, there's something else in his mind. He's not authentically answering the question when he gets asked about it, right? Because he's given, to be fair, a version of what you're saying there. The only sort of slight argument for what you're saying is that every coach up to this point has managed to find room for him. It's not always a 10 course, but they've managed to find room for him in there somewhere, which presumably there is some sort of a seed of doubt with Borthwick around him. Otherwise you'd have him in the team.
Yeah, but that's what the coach's job is, he's earned the right to coach England, and now he's doing it, and that's why the coach has a huge role, because selection and combinations and timing and playing certain guys with certain people or not with others is hugely important, and that's what he'd be judged on. So he's gone for this option, and I think let's just watch and maybe see that his thinking is ahead of ours or certain people, because I like the idea of launching Smith, giving him control, letting him have a crack at the week, seeing what he can do. You need two of them either way. They're not far away from a World Cup. It's a big game. It's a better game for, put it this way, I don't think you can start Smith in Dublin ahead of at 10 as opposed, sorry, that's the wrong language. I think it is a much better choice by Borthwick to start Smith in Twickenham with 80,000 people roaring him on than starting him in the Aviva when you're going to have 40,000-50,000 people hoping he makes an error every time he touches the ball. So that for me is setting up a young 10 to succeed. Put him in a non-hostile environment, in a warm kind of comforting stadium where he'll have his teammates and the public roaring him on. So I like that choice.
Yeah, it's a horses for courses thing, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, Farrell is proven and will be proven and is a winner and is a competitor and is not going to sulk because he's not in the starting team. He's going to be good to go. There's probably a lot more question marks over Smith at this level, but England have a good draw in the World Cup. They're not going to win the Six Nations, so maybe there's some great learnings for them over the next 2 weeks.
I've been thinking it's a classic Irish mentality that it hasn't been a vintage Six Nations, and Ireland are sort of, let's not use the language of running away, but certainly ahead of the pack at the minute, and let's see what happens this weekend, on the basis that maybe some of the rest of them haven't been quite up to it. I would be very interested in your thoughts on that, given the years obviously that you would have been involved with Ireland and how rare it is that success comes around.
I think it's been a brilliant Six Nations. I think it's been quality games. I think I was in the ground for Ireland-France, a fantastic game. The Scotland-France game was a very good game. Italy, Ireland was a fantastic game, and Ireland made a few changes, and you could see that it isn't beyond the realms of possibility, as we've seen from the analysis on this show, that Italy could have taken the lead with less than 12 minutes to go, Adrian. Yeah. So that's all you look for in these games, But it's been a fantastic competition, which, you look at the finish England have. So England have France at home and away to Ireland. So from their point of view, their competition is only really starting again. And Ireland have been models of consistency with every team looking to beat them. And in regard to Scotland, they have been improving quickly and consistently, and they have threats all over the park, which a lot of people probably underappreciate, because their back three with Hogg and Van der Merwe are very, very dangerous players. Their centres are playing together a lot. And with Finn Russell, anything in that regard can happen. And I think they've added a bit of steel up front.
I think Johnny Sexton was getting a little bit annoyed during the week. He was saying one of the press conferences Irish Rugby tagged him in a post that he didn't quite appreciate about the 557 points haul and the record and chasing it down, which he kind of said, I suppose adds a little bit of pressure to him. He said it's not a record, Ronan, that he's ever sought out to catch. He's only 7 points off, so could hunt you down this weekend potentially. Like, I'm sure it gets annoying for a player because every second journalist wants to ask you about the points record. When you're that close to it, does it get frustrating in press conferences? Because clearly everyone wants to ask Johnny about it this week.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's that's an individual record, and I think when you're part of a team that you care a lot about and you're the captain of, there's definitely more important goals. But as a competitor, that's certainly something that he's going to be very proud of, and he's worked hard and he's a serious competitor. So whatever Johnny gets, and I've said it to him, he deserves, because he's 37 years of age and he's given everything to it. So when he breaks that record, he will deserve to do it, because as I say to my players nowadays, there's no hard luck stories. You get out of it what you put into it, and he's put a lot into it. So I think from his point of view, he's going to be posting a new target for someone else to chase down.
Have you got it stuck into the Mentee yet over there? What's the...
Oh, you did a little bit of Googling.
No, I haven't. I haven't. I was in Marrakesh a few years ago, and I would be very partial to the teapot with the amazing.
Jeez,
I'm sitting here Googling Tagazout at the moment. Fishing village north of Agadir, known for its surfing as well, Ronan. You've got cafes, surf shops.
I don't surf, but typical Paddy anyway. Day one, just the lack of sun cream has paid a brutal price, where days 2 and 3 will be indoor, I think. Shins are burnt off me.
Would you recommend it? Is it a place you'd recommend visiting?
Should I say nothing? I sat in my app yesterday for a day.
He's like, get off the line, lads, get off the line.
Sure, it was Wednesday 2 days ago. He was practicing his kicking, yeah.
The decision, the big decision today is whether to get the camel ride on the beach or not. That's the...
you have to do it, don't you?
Well, where we're coming from today with like freezing temperatures and everybody's snowed in, that is not a bad dilemma to have. Get the sun cream on. Enjoy the weekend.
All right. You too. See you, lads.
Thanks
for the chat.
Ronan O'Gara on the line from Morocco. It turns out it's 12 minutes past 8.
Jealous.
I was in Marrakesh a few years ago, and it's a nice... I've never been to any other part of Africa. It felt like a good introduction in that, it's
culturally
not a crazy culture shock.
Yeah.
I mean, there are aspects of it, of course. But and we went out around the Atlas. We got a tour out around the Atlas Mountains.
Oh.
And really nice. We went out, so they bring you around and they sort of obviously talk to you about the landscape and about the villages and about everything comes together. And then, I often joke with my wife at home. I'm like, remember that family that brought us in? It was just amazing. They just opened their doors, brought us in for lunch, had these amazing tagines. Of course, it was all part of the paid for experience.
Of course,
but,
yeah. Hashtag culture. What's a tagine?
Tagine is it's like a stew, Moroccan stew.
Ah, right.
They cook it over a flame
coddle.
and stuff, and it gets it in the tagine pot.
I'm gonna book either Marrakesh.
It's not even hard to get to.
Yeah, it's a quick flight, isn't it? Well, a 3 or 4 hour flight.
Yeah,
it's not too bad. What is it called? Tagazout. I mean,
Tagazout. No, I'm not sure about.
No,
I can't vouch for Tagazout.
Well, it sounds like the Google images. Naturally enough, look very nice. But that's on a lovely sunny day.
Lovely spot. The main square there in Marrakesh, and the souks off it, the markets.
Yeah.
You'd love it, Shane.
A bit of culture. But I'd probably spend half the time in the Atlas Mountains doing a bit of hiking.
Be nothing wrong with that.
No. I'd say I wonder what the highest point in the Atlas Mountains is. I'll do a bit of research later on.
I'm sure.
Get it booked.
We've been told to get out of here. So 30 minutes past 8. It is OTB AM. We've loads to come between now and 10 for you this morning. We're going to go back into the rugby with Quinny in just a little bit. We'll have Stuey, Byrne and Seana Cooke in studio later on as well. We'll have our Friday Firepit as always, of course, and whatever else it is that you're having yourself. So do get in contact with us. with whatever thoughts you have. Don't miss out, by the way, on all the rugby action, Rugby Daily today in your OTB podcast network, bringing you everything you need to know about the games this weekend. It's all in partnership with Deliveroo. Deliveroo, some great bundles and deals to take down with the rugby. So open the app and make your choice and watch your rider come to you. Deliveroo, food, we get it. After the break, going to speak about United last night with Noz Choudry.
Listen to OTB AM live every weekday morning from 7:30 on your smart speaker. Just ask Alexa to play OTB Sports Radio.
Manchester United returned to the Theatre of Dreams after last week's 7-goal nightmare at Anfield.
I don't think it's Manchester United, but it's really bad and poor.
They entertain a Southampton side fighting relegation and finding form.
Bowler from David De Gea, and Southampton lead Manchester United.
Join me, Stephen Doyle, with Brian Kerr for all the build-up to the 2 o'clock kickoff. Then it's over to Nathan and Kenny at St James's Park, where free-falling Newcastle will try to fend off the Wolves from 4pm.
Finish! Matt Lonsdale! Finish! On your debut!
Live exclusive Premier League football on Off the Ball this Sunday from 1.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
8:15. Colm is just pointing out we've had some great comments coming in today, Shane.
Yeah, I tell you, there must be a prize on offer. Yeah, see Bracken, Ger is the Bruno Fernandes of OTB. I love that one.
That's a compliment.
That's what I think as well. Maybe it wasn't intended that way, but it's definitely a compliment, I would say. Roy Donoghue, MUTV every day. People give out. United were playing last night. I mean, we're going to talk about them. Naturally enough.
And we have a prize on offer, of course, as well as this beautiful colouring book.
Absolutely.
Big part. People love free stuff.
They do, yeah.
We don't. We're not calling you out for that. That is fair enough.
Yeah.
But we are at MUTV. We are going to continue our Man United conversation. Whoever that texter was. Noz Choudry. Good morning.
Hiya, how's it going?
Very good, and welcome back to the show. Been a really uneventful week since we chatted last.
I know, yeah. I mean, it's just a pity United didn't play on the weekend, so we had a long break for the Europa League game. So yeah.
In the just on the basis of last night and coupled with non-events last weekend, in the Ten Hag story, did it feel last night like an important win? Doesn't obviously, I mean, it doesn't wipe out what happened on Sunday, but does it nudge things back on track a little bit?
Yeah, I think it does. I think the whole thing about whether the weekend result was a freak result, it depends on both the clubs. So like if it affects your team, then it's not a freak result. If they recover well, then it's just a blip. So yeah, it was. I mean, like when I say blip, I mean like a terrible nightmarish blip that'll haunt us for years. But yeah, it's as long as it's just a one-off, that'll be all right.
For all the good work that's gone on, and like pre last Sunday, obviously there was so much positivity about United. There was a lot of conversation about how many goals are they going to beat Liverpool by. But for all the good work that's been there, is it a fragile progress that's there, and that Sunday sort of planted seeds of doubt about, or is there still like a really firm belief that this Ten Hag thing is going to end in the most positive fashion?
I think it's both. I think Ten Hag is obviously an incredible manager, and we can already see that. But I think anytime any team improves radically over a short amount of time, it's great. It's great if that happens, but you've always got to think like it is by nature fragile. So the quicker it happens, the more likely it is that one or two things going wrong could make it sort of crumble a little bit, and I think the worst thing about the Liverpool game was just how fragile like the mentality seemed, just in terms of you go 4-0, you go 5-0, and then like just giving up and just being petulant and bratty and yeah, so that was the most disappointing thing, because like you want to see just a little bit of composure and professionalism. So yeah, the game last night, although it wasn't the biggest game in the world, and even though the scoreline looked really good, it wasn't the most amazing performance in the world. Like it was really important just to get that feeling out of your body and just start like looking forward. And again, from United fans' points of view, it's that thing of like just feeling good about your team again. So yeah.
When you mentioned the word petulant there, I think a lot of people would immediately have thought of Bruno Fernandes, Noz, and like he played well last night, scored his goal, was involved in a lot of the good things that United did. But last weekend, I mean, his attitude called into question, to say the least. Even last night, Paul Scholes saying he still doesn't believe he's the captain material, that you need someone else with a different kind of personality and character. What do you make of the whole Bruno as captain discussion that's been had this week?
I mean, in one sense, I'd probably agree that like he's a valuable player because the thing is he always impacts games. You see players go missing sometimes. Usually, quite often it's because they're afraid of the pressure and they're afraid of the ball, especially at a team like United. So they won't impact the game like he always does. He always makes things happen. He always impacts the game, and he always pops up with sort of important moments. But first of all, I wouldn't say he's naturally got like a captain's authority or sort of like the kind of way you'd want your team to be represented. But the other thing is like, what do captains matter in football? It's not like other sports like cricket or rugby or whatever, where like it's fundamental and they're sort of like really setting out the tactics on the pitch. Like in football, a captain is just like, it's kind of irrelevant because players are just going to look up to the players that they want to look up to and naturally look up to anyway. And a captain is just the person who sort of like tosses the coin at the beginning. So I don't think I've never understood why people give that much of a care that much about who's the captain, because it's not important in football.
That's a really interesting point, because we've spent a lot of the week with various people, and I would definitely certainly have been, and I'm challenged now by what you're saying, but I would definitely been of the view that you're looking at Bruno Fernandes as captain in that game and watching his actions with like there was a chat about was he trying to get subbed off or whatever, which was clearly not the case, but his more petulant behaviour or the lack of leadership almost, and thinking, well, if that's what he's about, surely then it's okay for me to be sort of giving half an effort here. But your view would be that that's obviously that's on the players if they're taking their lead from him and deciding that they can make a half an effort. I mean, I guess that's on them, but your view is very counter to the traditional view of a captain.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very sport specific. So, like in some sports, like the captain's vital, and I suppose in football, the only sort of practical way in which a captain is important is he's the one who's able to speak to the referee. He's the one that's allowed to harangue the referee, and maybe in that sense, like Ten Hag's been a bit canny, because like if you want one player to be constantly in the air with the referee and pester him and be able to get away with it, like it's probably Bruno. So but the thing is like this players like Casemiro, who, I mean, the players will respect him just as much if he's captain or not. So yeah, I just think the armband is mostly like unimportant and a bit irrelevant. It's a little bit like I don't really care about, like as a United fan, I don't really care about the number 7 shirt. I think that's very much like a modern almost branding thing rather than anything that was real. Because like people talk about Brian Robson and stuff, but like in those days everyone was swapping jerseys anyway. Everyone was swapping numbers anyway. So like no one had a set number. So yeah, it's one of those things that I don't think is that important. It's just funny, like before when you were talking about John O'Shea and stuff. I was thinking of Bruno, but then I misunderstood. I misheard you actually meant cult hero.
It's a fair point.
You got to get your coffee in early in the morning. That's really important. But certain words.
See the thing. I guess the thing, Noz, I'm thinking is like. The armband is probably symbolic in many ways. Like someone like Roy Keane doesn't need an armband to be a leader. Yeah. Steve Bruce probably didn't need an armband to be a leader. But maybe, when I'm thinking about it now, maybe Bruno Fernandes is the type of player who does need the armband to kind of rise to the leadership role a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, the flip side of that is that sometimes, and again, I'm not necessarily saying this is the case with Bruno, but like some players sort of go a little bit over the top when they've got like extra responsibility. Like they try a bit too hard. And they try and affect the game too much, and that's when you get like sendings off and like stuff like that, where like they're almost not playing the natural game.
Yeah, he might have been lucky to have stayed on the pitch, in fact, last night. When you saw the starting 11, were you thinking, masterclass from Ten Hag here? What an absolute genius this guy is. What was your initial reaction when he went with the same team?
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. I thought it was like, yeah, go out and sort out your mess, like no one's covering up for you, and also like the thing is, the squad is is pretty small in terms of those players that he trusts. So it would have been a bit weird if he'd made like 2 or 3 changes after 7-0. It would have been a little bit weird because it would almost be perceived as those players that he took out are to blame for the 7-0. So I think it was quite canny in that respect, in that like if he doesn't drop anyone, then everyone's to blame. Whereas if like for instance he dropped Bruno and Anthony and various other people, then like suddenly everyone will be saying, oh, he thinks that they're the problem. He thinks that they're the reason why they lost 7-0. So yeah, I think it made sense. And like I said, it was a good performance. I do think the sort of score in the end was a bit blattering, but yeah, like Anthony scored his normal goal that he always scores, which and again, like he's such a funny one, like in terms of like the amount of United players who'll be like moaning and flagging him off, but then he'll score his goal. It's just goal. And like his same goal that he always scores.
You mentioned about like I totally agree with that point about if he makes changes, people are pointing the finger at that. That said, at half time last night, or when the second half got underway, I was like, Delors is the guy that this is the one. This is the guy who he's blaming for this stuff. It seems like a long road back for him now, or is that overstating it?
I think the thing with Delors is that beginning of the season he was really, really good in terms of I've never massively rated him just because I think he's a bit of I've always perceived him as a bit of a nothing player, and he just kind of does a job, but like that's it. Like he's like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Like you don't notice him, which isn't a good thing for a fullback, like especially in the modern game. But he started the season really, really well, to the extent that like he was linked to like Barcelona and Real Madrid and teams like that. But he's totally gone back to type really after the World Cup. And I mean, in fairness, Wan-Bissaka was a bit of a game changer for me. I think he's been a bit of a revelation since, because everyone just assumed that like he's off, and he might still be off, but it's that thing of like he added a bit of oomph and dynamism to the team last night, and he's done it in a few games before where he just adds an energy and he just impacts the game. And the thing with Wan-Bissaka is that like I think his ability to go forward is a little bit over. Like a big thing's made out about the fact that he can't go forward, or he can't sort of add anything to the team going forward, which I think that's a bit overstated. My biggest issue with Wan-Bissaka is everyone goes on about he's a great defender. He's a great one-on-one defender, but like his positioning is sometimes his cack. Like he'll the amount of times a cross will come in from the other side and he's just not defending. He's not marking his man on his post. So I think that's the issue with Wan-Bissaka. But like last night, I think he was amazing. He might have been like the biggest difference in the second half.
Weghorst came up when we were talking about cult heroes earlier on. I'll be very careful when I use that word. He like the emotion from Weghorst when he scored the goal. Clearly, it meant so much to him. You can't help but feel like it's definitely a short-term solution to a long-term problem for United. Who do you hope to see brought in, Noz, as that proper striker, as that number 9, like Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen from Napoli, probably being the two that are most heavily linked, I guess? Yeah, I mean, so much of it depends on sort of like the funds that are available, and also like I don't quite get the whole financial fair play situation now, because that seems to have a major impact on who can spend what. But I everything I've seen of Osimhen I love. I just think he's a great player. Like it's funny, you talk about cult heroes, and one player that I always loved at United, and he never quite happened for him properly because of injury, was Louis Saha. I just thought he was an incredible player, like so underrated. If he'd have stayed injury free, like in a lot of ways, he was not only was he the complete centre forward, but like the complete modern centre forward. Like he was almost ahead of his time. I honestly think he's that good that. And again, I'm not saying he's as good as these two players, but he was almost a combination of Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole in that he had the incredibly sharp finishing, but he had all the build-up play as well. He could dribble the ball, he could get involved in other parts of the game, and like Osimhen just seems like
a next level Louis Saha in terms of he's that kind of player, but even more so. And again, like, you've always got to be slightly careful of players who are having like a massive purple patch, because you don't know if they're just having like an amazing season or whatever. But the thing with Osimhen is that like his overall game is so good, and you can immediately see if he was in a Ten Hag team how he would have the time of his life, and be given full reign to do what he wants to do. And again, like, it's that thing of like Harry Kane's an incredible footballer, and he'd be probably more of a dead cert sort of like guarantee of getting goals and doing well in especially in the league, in English football. But like, Osimhen is like the player who there's a bit more fantasy about him. There's a bit more excitement about him, that he could be like a player that goes on to the next level at the club. And yeah, the thought of an informed Rashford and Osimhen together, like, no one would want to play against that in any league, like whether it's Champions League or the Premier League. No one would want to face them two together.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Obviously, the younger player, and Harry Kane is just like, part of his reason possibly for going to United is that he's just not happy with his current partner. It's just not, it's you, not me. And I've been given the side eye from this other club over here, and it may end up, of course, being that way. What, by the way, just when we touch on the cult hero, how would you describe the factors that go into describing what a cult hero should be?
I don't think it's an exact science, but I think it's generally when a player means more to you as a fan of the club than it would naturally mean to the rest of football. And also, it's a funny one because I suppose it's a ratio of how good the player is with how much you love them for other reasons. So I don't know, like Diego Forlan, like he was a level player who wasn't quite good enough for United, or he didn't quite work at United when he was there. He ended up being an incredible player at other teams, but the amount of hard work he put in, the amount of sort of like effort he put in, the way that the fans were rooting for him. And I think it's funny, you mentioned Weghorst. Like, people are happy for him, like a great moment last night, but I don't think the fans have taken him to the hearts as much as Forlan. And I think part of that can be vulnerability. Like, I don't think Weghorst has got a natural sort of like aura of vulnerability. Like, he looks like a Hollywood like bully in a film, whereas like Forlan, you could see that he's really struggling. He needs the fans to be on his back, not on his back in a bad way, but like in support of him. And when he scored, it was such a massive thing. And again, like, a cult hero needs a big game, and like Forlan scoring twice against Liverpool like cemented that. And again, like, there's other like there's players that, so outside of teams he's played for, like, how much do people rate Joe Jordan? And yet, like, he's way before my time, but I know he's a cult hero. Like Les Sealer, like, he was my era. Like, outside of United fans, like, if you talk to Spurs fans or West Ham, well, West Ham's a bad example because he played for them, but like Portsmouth or whatever, like, they'd be like, okay, Les Sealy played for Luton and he played for Manchester United and played for other teams, but yeah, okay, whatever. But like, for Manchester United fans, he's such a cult hero because he had these big moments, he had these big cup finals, he had that famous cup final when he refused to come off the pitch, but when he had his leg bandaged and he was basically playing with 1.5 legs. So it's that kind of thing that sort of makes you a cult hero. And I think John O'Shea's a funny one because if you take John O'Shea and you take Darren Fletcher, both similar in a way, in that they were utility players who were really useful for the team and always did a job. But like Darren Fletcher, like, there wasn't really anything to hang your coat on in terms of his personality or like anything to really massively love. Whereas I don't know what it is, but with John O'Shea, there is something that is they just fundamentally look like he's lovable, and I don't know why. And
the late goal against Liverpool would help.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But again, it's that thing of like it's a trier. Like, people love a trier. People love someone who really cares.
Yeah.
And John O'Shea, like, again, like, he's sometimes sometimes it's just your face. Like he's like John O'Shea just got a kindly face. He's a big hulk of a man, but like he's got a kindly face. Like sometimes it can be as arbitrary as that. But yeah, like it's also things can happen in retrospect as well, because like you talk about Anthony, and then like these days everyone's comparing him to like Nani, saying the thing with Nani is that like if Anthony was half as good as Nani, then like we'd be happy. Like why can't he be more like Nani? Like, but like you go back to that time, he did everyone's head in. Like everyone would always be slagging him off. Everyone would be saying how frustrating he was. But like in retrospect, now people love him. The same people who were slagging him off. So yeah, I think with Anthony, like he needs to sort of like prove. Anthony either needs to show more of his game in terms of like there's been one or two moments where he's shown like with the quick passing and one twos and like breaking through, like he's more of a player than just that shot. So he either needs to expand his repertoire and show he's more of a player, or he just needs to become really, really good at that one thing. And like Arjen Robben, like he was really good at that one thing, but that one thing was so good. It's like Christopher Walken or like Jennifer Coolidge. Like they, in everything that they act in, they are playing themselves, but they do it so well that it's fine. Whereas like Jason, you don't want Anthony to become like Jason Statham, who essentially does play himself in every film. But is that a good thing? So yeah,
he gets typecast. On that note, and for the weekend that's in it, we have had a comment in here from Bobby Dwyer, who's a noted Spurs fan who is in contact with the show on a fairly regular basis, saying in the tone of Will Smith, "Keep Harry Kane's name out your mouth." That's the word from there. Inshallah United, we mentioned it last week and you were on with us. It's out now.
Yeah, well, it's officially out next month, 16th March.
Next month.
So yeah, so get your pre-orders in. Like the one thing I'll say is that like, do you know like there's the whole thing of like what people do where like they're like, I can't be racist because like I've got a black best friend or I've got an Asian best friend. What I'm saying here now is I'm allowing you to have my book on your bookshelf. So anytime anyone says you're racist or Islamophobic, just point to the book. Like I'm letting you have that as a get out of jail card.
You've just increased orders like through the roof with that. What's it about?
It's essentially about me growing up in the late 80s and late 80s and the whole of 90s really. Just as the son of an immigrant Pakistani family, and just finding my way and sort of like finding my passions growing up, and that was like music, it was like culture, it was, and obviously a big thing was football, and it's about how I sort of like ended up supporting United, how important they were to me growing up, how as like a little brown kid, as a Muslim kid, like you I think everyone like when you're going through your teenage years, you desperately want acceptance and you desperately want to belong to something. And obviously we all know that football is amazing for that. You can go anywhere in the world, and if you're wearing a football kit or you mention a footballer, or even if you mention you're from Manchester, straight away, like it's a conversation. People sort of like can latch onto that, and it's just about how growing up, like that meant so much to me, and how like people look at people. I think people think about being Muslim or being Asian or being whatever, and football is separate things. I don't. Like for me, it was all connected. And it's also about like the funny thing is that it's almost like an accident of birth that I was born in Manchester and had all these passions and got into Manchester music and Manchester culture and obviously United. Like my family could easily have moved to Liverpool or somewhere in London, and then I'd have all sorts of different sort of cultural influences. So yeah, it's a bit of all that, and hopefully it's fun and sort of like humorous as well as sort of like touching on those more serious points.
And I think your take on Maggie Thatcher and Oz might strike a familiar chord with some Irish readers as well, possibly.
I mean, she was a massive cult
Excellent note to leave it on.
Yeah.
Plus, everything you've said there has kicked off a million questions in my head previously. So rather than squeeze that into 30 seconds now, let's get a copy of the book and let's get you back on over the next few weeks and have a chat about it.
Brilliant.
Thanks a million, Noz.
All right, see you later.
Cheers, Noz.
As at Bearded Genius on Twitter, if you want to go and check him out, and he is absolutely well worth a follow, and that will be a book that I'll be reading. I did enjoy his explanation of why you should get it on your shelf, and for that reason alone I'm sure it'll sell well. 8:40 almost, loads of comments coming in. Nigel Gallagher says Shane's a sound man.
Looking for the best comment.
We have this beautiful colouring book to give away this morning for the best comments that have come in, so please keep them flying in. I don't know if that's contender. Shane is going to be the arbiter at the end. The Francie Brady says every gone being saying that Bruno is not a captain. We're screaming for him to be captain 6 months ago. Fickle fans with short memories.
That's football fans for you.
Stop talking about Man U, says Johnny Vaughan as well. Nani was a nothing player, says James O'Connor. He got hammered for not being Ronaldo, was basically what happened to him.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. He scored a penalty in that shootout win over Chelsea in the Champions League final. When you have moments like that, little moments like that, then I think fans remember you a bit more fondly.
No talk, it's James Gill, no talk of him nearly breaking a lad's leg. He's talking about Bruno from last night. I mentioned it twice a little bit earlier in the show.
Yeah, twice, literally. People have selective hearing as well, sometimes.
8:40, you are watching OTBAM. We'll wait to you all the way until 10 this morning, and brought to you each day, which let Labs get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
How are you getting on?
Very good, thanks.
I've got a few comments into me here for my what I said to Ronan O'Gara earlier on about the overall quality of the 6 stations, which either I butchered what I meant to ask him or I've been slightly misrepresented the conversation. So I look to clear it up and to get your thoughts on it as well. Ireland obviously
Go
flying.
Match by match.
Huh?
Go match by match.
Ireland flying, right? And the way I posed it was to say that like you feel like nearly an Irish... There's like an Irish guilt on some level about, well, maybe the other teams just aren't all that this year, and that's why Ireland are going so well. I'm not saying that it hasn't been. I might have butchered the question. I appreciate that. It's been a very good Six Nations, but there is something innate, I think, in us as a nation, where when we're on top looking down, we kind of feel like, oh, well, maybe it hasn't been the best year, but it has been.
Well, if you were to rate the teams, who would you'd probably go Ireland have played the best, Scotland, England.
You'd have expected more from France, probably a little bit.
Yeah, probably a bit. I think Italy played really well as regards viewing and good to watch. But sometimes the Six Nations can be cup rugby and teams really kind of going at each other, and might be the most expansive rugby, particularly at the start of some tournaments. But it's been very good. Wales have been disappointing in the way they've played. I think the Wales-England game in round 3, I did commentary for that. I found it a really difficult game. Both sides just kicked the leather off the ball. I think England kicked it 38 times, Wales kicked it 34 times. The kicking in the Ireland-France game was quite high and similar, but just a different game. People were talking about it being one of the best halves of rugby they'd ever seen. And that's probably from neutrals, not Irish journalists. Lots of English journalists. We were in the press room in Murrayfield watching that, and people were kind of glued to it, thought it was a brilliant game, from other countries. So I think the quality at times has been, the skill set and the ambition of teams has been very high. I think the execution has been poor at times. There's mitigating factors with that. Wales have been... all the off-field stuff has been difficult for them. Mixture of trying to bring in some young players and a changing of the old guard. Warren Gatland spoke about that at the start of the tournament. Each Welsh team I've seen, I've kind of gone, well, that's not a bad team. That's a good team. That's a good team. I think the cohesiveness and all that kind of stuff, but they've problems in certain areas. I think Dan Biggar, who has been a wonderful player, and there's no reason why he can't be a wonderful player for another couple of years, just kind of got into he went into his shell a little bit and was kicking a lot. That comes down to confidence as well, and being confident of the players around you. They have 2 20-year-olds in the centres the last day against England. So there's been mitigation for them there. Steve Borthwick taking over for England. He said at the start of the tournament after they were beaten by Scotland that they weren't good at anything, which is a massive
interesting comment
statement, really, because you think that comment will linger, and if they're not successful at the World Cup, well, people will refer back to it all the time. I think it's the type of person he is. He's a very honest guy, and I think he'll do well with England. Nick Evans in there with their attack, it's going to improve. England are kind of silently building a little bit. Obviously, they need to change their approach, and you can remind people, the listeners and anybody who knows rugby, when Andy Farrell and Mike Catt kind of took over the reins, our attack struggled in Ireland for a bit, and there was a lot of talks about, not using the attack, breaking down continuously. So building an attack structure and changing behaviours of players takes a fair bit of time. So England are in that situation. I think they'll always have good players because they have so much depth. Italy have been the one that has excited people, really, in their 3 games. I think in Twickenham they were out-muscled, weren't they, by England, who mauled a lot and were quite direct, didn't give them any kind of loose opportunities. But their performance against France and Ireland was really encouraging, and we all want to see that because we don't want to see England getting walloped. They'll be confident this weekend against Wales.
Talk to us about Peter O'Mahony. He was in with Nathan yesterday, and it was a short but interesting chat. We've been, you and I, in his house a couple of years ago having a chat with him about other things as well, and I actually asked this question in the context of us falling into the trap, the same as everybody else, of not focusing at times enough on the positive stories. You tend to go for the other side of things.
Well, we're nervous, aren't we, because of what happened in 19, what I mean? But afraid to get too far ahead of ourselves.
About O'Mahony particularly, let's pay a bit of homage to a guy who's been written off plenty of times. We have tended to look at Nathan put it to him yesterday. We tend to look at Peter O'Mahony as if he's like 48. He's still 33, I think it is, and with plenty to offer. And a guy who is just clearly not going anywhere anytime soon in the best possible sense.
Yeah, he's a great leader, isn't he? And I think he's a positive influence in any team he's in. If you look at the Munster career, it's been pretty tough. And
you mean with coaches and stuff?
Yeah, well, coaches and not winning trophies and always been the underdog and under pressure and not fancied, not having all that quality around him. And that's not to single Peter O'Mahony out. Obviously the other players as well. And you play provincial rugby for any of the provinces, whether it be Connacht, Ulster, Leinster, you'd love to be in a situation where you're a genuine contender for Europe. And that was something that all my generational players and that Munster team, it was something that kind of kept us together, and not many left. Everybody wanted to stay there. We were going to be in contention. And he's a very passionate Munster man, obviously, and wants to win. And there's been a lot of disappointing stories over the years, and that's kind of hard to take as a player. So it's a real measurement of his character as well, and his resilience to kind of keep fighting back and, going out of those disappointment blocks and end of season stuff with Munster and turning up with, Ireland and summer tours and performing and doing well. It's not a fluke that he keeps getting picked. I think his numbers as regards carries and wouldn't be as big as other back rowers, but his biggest strength, Peter, is, I suppose, the breakdown, and his line-out work is outstanding. And then when you bring a lot of leadership, work rate and honesty and all that kind of stuff, he feeds into whatever team he plays with in a very positive way. So I think it's nice to see those stories of players who've, he's probably been written off a few times in the last number of years. And I think if you ask Peter, he's a pretty honest fella. At times his form probably dipped a little bit. There was one period there where people were questioning, should he be starting for Munster? So it's a sign of a player, and everybody has those kind of dips in their career, even at club level. So I think it's a good sign of the measure of. And I think the one thing I don't think Peter O'Mahony will I think he's probably seems a bit more relaxed and happier and content in himself. Pressure can have a big bearing on how you approach your game and sport, because New Zealand last year was. He was really big in those big games, and he's a big game player. So, sometimes you'd love to see him get his hands on the ball more, because I think, but that's not. that's not his big strength. And when you've someone like Doris around you, I'd nearly be just, here you go. And it happened with me with Munster. Most of the time, if I was a first receiver or a carrier, I was looking for David Wallace because Wally was that, get him the ball as quick as you can. But he's done well, and there's nobody can deny that, whether you have any provincial bias or anything. Like Peter O'Mahony's been a big player for Ireland, and he signed a new contract, didn't he, recently enough, for another year. And like, nobody should raise any eyebrows at that. Like, he funny, in the interview he spoke about the quality. He was sort of removing himself from the conversation a little bit, but spoke about the quality of some of the players that you've mentioned there. But you're saying, like, as you know, obviously he mentioned as well, he talked about the line out and realising at a point in his career that he needed to have something that was like a USP for him, essentially, which seemed to be that area. Maybe the bit of a dog as well, I'm sure, is... the dog thing is just determination, and it's an abrasiveness that it's natural there in him. A fight, he's a kind of fellow you would want to go into battle, go to the south of France, and, with your backs against the wall, a crowd baying for blood, that kind of a situation. Someone like him in New Zealand he'd kind of be inspiring people around him to say, let's go for this. This is brilliant. Our backs are to the wall. So, but look, there's many other good players in that team. James Ryan has a real edge about him back. I think it's brilliant to see that. Doris... a lot of them have Furlong, even you see at times. Yeah, Furlong is a fella, like, if you're hovering around the breakdown trying to steal a ball and Tyke Furlong is coming at pace, you'll know about it, Sheehan is... Porter has that real aggressive kind of... You need that confrontational thing which is controlled. And I think if you asked aside from me saying this, if you ask the Irish players, honestly, how important he is around the group, there's no guarantee he starts every match, because that's... the competition that's here at the moment, which is a perfect scenario, is these guys have got to keep performing, or else. And he came off early in the last game. If you make changes and you want your bench to be an impact as well, so you want kind of tight marginal calls with players getting selected right across the board. So he's got to keep performing if he wants to keep going. I think, was it before the Wales game we asked you about the rivalry with the Welsh, and you were kind of pointing out that you always felt the Scottish rivalry had a bit more vigour and bite to it. Like, the Irish players in the press conferences this week have been very generous toward the Scots. I think Johnny Sexton said it's the best Scotland team he's come up against. Is that mind games in your experience in the week? It's not, Shane, because if you ask me about Scotland, I'd be pretty nervous about Sunday. People are saying... will we win? Will we win? The obvious question that you get from the layperson on the street. I don't know. I think, if Ireland play well, and it's the if, and there's no reason why we shouldn't play well and be in that type of a cauldron and perform, because we've kind of done it consistently. You kind of have fear sometimes when you're on a really good run. It kind of ends at some stage, you know what I mean? Or you get a bad day at the office, or I know what happened to your team last Sunday. I hate to bring it up again, but 7-Up, you left the 7-Up outside Quinny as well, I noticed. But sometimes you can be in a really consistent run, and it might be just something during the week where you've relaxed a little bit, or a couple of players have just waited for somebody else to do something or expected it to happen. I think this Irish team are pretty balanced as regards experience and youthful exuberance. Yeah. There's plenty of that there. You can imagine what Johnny Sexton and the likes of Peter O'Mahony and Bundy Ackies and these guys will be saying. They've been around a fair bit. They've seen some of the tough times as well. They've all experienced 2019, that disappointment. So those kind of reminders, and they would have the experience to remind Ireland, if we're not on the money here and if we don't come with the right attitude, and it isn't about kind of easing your way into the game, they've got to go out and impose themselves, because I have no doubt Scotland will come hard at them. They'll be really energetic and enthused and full of vigour early on in the game, and pretty ferocious in their approach. Because if I was in the Scottish team, I'm thinking the number one best team in the world are coming. They're kind of similar size playing population to us. Their provinces have been pretty dominant against our teams in the last few years. They as a national team have beaten us a lot. There's a lot to gain here. There's a triple crown on the line. We want to enhance our careers, get better opportunities as players with different clubs around Europe, all that kind of stuff. So there's loads and loads of stuff here. And look, you win you're passionate about your country. They're very passionate, the Scots, about what they possibly can do. And I think they look like there's a bit of a zip about them, and what they're doing. And, they had a tough World Cup as well, hadn't they, in 2019. Gregor Townsend was nearly gone. So this is a good Scotland team. Pierce Schoolman has made a difference to them. He's carries so much, the loose head. He's powerful, strong scrummager. Turner, the hooker, George Turner, has been outstanding for them. And their back row, Matt Fagerson, I think he's spoken this week about that there is no kind of hatred between the two countries. But he's been brilliant for them, and they're two centres, so I think they've a real balance. People ask where have they improved and why are they better. A lot of focus on Finn Russell, but I think there's a lot of other players there that can really hurt you. Tupelotu in the centre has been a great find for them. Hugh Jones back, really balanced runner, always looking for the gap. So they have a lot of really good players, and the scrum half, Ben White, has done brilliantly. Yeah. He's done really brilliant for them.
The Ireland team have been named later today, but I'm going to Jerry Thornley is the team here, so I'll give people a sense of what he has and get your reaction to that. And it seems like it's kind of replicated across the board, maybe not hugely surprising. But Hugo Keenan in full back, you have Hansen and Lowe on the wings, Ringrose and Aki, if this is to be believed, is how he'll go in midfield. Sexton and the returning Gibson Park then at the half backs, and then Porter, Sheehan and Furlong back in the front row, Ryan and Henderson in the second row, and then O'Mahony, Van der Fleer and Kellen Doris has become the norm in the back row. And then on the bench, Kelleher, Kilcoyne, Healy back on the bench, Tom O'Toole because Beelum is out, Ryan Baird, Jack Conan, Conor Murray, Ross Byrne and Robbie Henshaw taking the 23 jersey, and that would mean McCluskey obviously missing out as well. But it's sort of a mix of obviously a bunch of players coming back from long-term injuries, Quinny, and you don't really, I'm thinking about Henshaw maybe specifically, but you don't want to rush everybody back maybe at the same time.
I think they would have probably trained pretty well, and I think some of these players could have played a few weeks ago, if in Italy, if needed. I think Andy Farrell has spoken about the setbacks and how that's been good for the squad, because you're probably going to have more setbacks in the lead up to the World Cup. You hope you have a clean bill of health, but to have this much quality coming back into any side, any sporting team, if you have 5 or 6 of your best players, starters, British and Irish lines coming back into your team, Furlong, what a player, what a leader, great experience. He's a British and Irish line. O'Mahony is, Robbie Henshaw is, Gibson Park probably would be if there was one picked this year. Gary Ringrose would be if there was one picked this year. They're incredible players to have back. And is there a risk in that? The risk is some of them, namely Furlong, Henshaw and Gibson Park, haven't played any rugby in a couple of months. I think Robbie Henshaw goes back to November, does he? With
start of December, yeah.
Hamstring and wrist injury then in January. Furlong goes back to the 3rd of December. Gibson Park he's had a pretty stop-start season with injuries. So we've seen lots of players and quality players come back, and it's how they manage them off the field and kind of whatever kind of off-field fitness and stuff that they do, that it can keep that endurance going. But nothing replicates playing matches. So, but to have them back and to have them back for this kind of last little block of 2 really, really vital games is massive for them.
Let's give the Scots something to stick on their dressing room wall, Quinny. Andy Dunn said we're going to do a number on them, 10 to 15 points. Look, if Ireland play and implement themselves and kind of bring a bit of power and intensity and I think if they take their opportunities, Ireland will create chances, and if they're accurate. Again, I'm a bit of a glass half empty sometimes when I'm in these situations. I was like that as a player, and that kind of invigorated me and kind of made me kind of anxious, and that anxiety then you can kind of use in a positive way, that it doesn't allow you to be complacent. But modern sports people are not afraid to expect. So I think Ireland will expect to go and win there, and that's not a cockiness. So it's a real kind of another string to this kind of mental strength, if you like, that you expect to go and win there. Why won't we go and win there? Yeah. We're not looking for reasons as to why not. We respect the opposition, and it sounds quite boring, but Ireland will expect to go and win there. Any team that can win the 2 tests like they did in New Zealand, win a series, I think they're very humble as regards
the coach kind of sets that standard that, you know, you hear this players speak and coaches speak about the opposition all the time, and you mentioned it there, Shane, about is it compliments that everyone's talking up Scotland, the Irish players. I think they're very mindful of what Scotland can do on the evidence of what we've seen. So they went to Paris and they easily could have won that game. They asked so many questions of France, and they'll ask questions of Ireland Sunday. So I don't think Ireland will be anyway complacent. And if Ireland lost this game, I wouldn't be that concerned. I wouldn't
Depends on the nature of the defeat.
The airs after coming out of the balloon now. I wouldn't because, you know, sometimes you play sport, Adrian, and you end up having a bit of an off day, and the opposition have this incredible surge and they get a few bounces of the ball.
Just that all our frontliners, most of them are back. That would be the one concern. Then you'd be like, oof.
No, I wouldn't, because then you have an obvious example of that they're a bit rusty and they haven't, it wouldn't be an excuse, it'd be a reality. So rolling the dice, bringing back the players, and I don't think Andy Farrell will be, I think, I like the fact that, you know, he's quite relaxed about the cards he's been dealt with the injuries and stuff like that. And as I said, they wouldn't put the players back in if they weren't kind of in good shape and training well and look sharp this week or maybe last week in their mini camp. But you still never know. But like, if you had those players available to Adrian to put them back in, you'd be kind of gone, let's go.
Give us in a word. You're going for Ireland. I don't want to be putting words in your mouth. By what? Quick as you can.
Maybe 7-8 points. But it could go the other way. That's the reality. But I'll stick to Ireland, given on what they've shown us.
Quinlan says Ireland by 7-8 points is the takeaway.
There's something from this. But the Scots won't mind saying that, because they probably think that, you know, they will use that little bit of chip on the shoulder maybe on Sunday, and they'll certainly bring that. Enjoy the games over the weekend, Quinny. Thanks a million. Cheers, lads. Catch up with you next week. It's 9 o'clock. You're watching OTB AM. We still have Stuey, Byrne and Seana Cooke to come to talk about this little beauty here, and a little bit of League of Ireland and Women's National League chat as well. And we are here, of course, with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition available now. Up next, it's the Friday Firepit. Cameron and Kathleen are going to join us in the studio for that. First of all, John Giles chatting to Nathan last night about Liverpool's mentality.
There's every possibility that Henderson and Fabinho won't be able to get to that level again this weekend against Bournemouth.
And if he puts on the same attitude as he did, as you say there, Nathan, it was attitude the other day with Liverpool.
So you don't think it's a physical thing that suddenly they were able to perform?
No, I think it's more mental, Nathan. Definitely, it's more a mental situation, especially when you've had the season Liverpool had last year. They won 2 trophies and they were there and thereabouts. And what happens then, the close season comes along very, very, very quickly. Very quickly. And it's very difficult. I experienced a little bit at Leeds when 1 or 2 seasons we were off the thing, haven't got back, haven't won the cup or whatever it was the previous league. And it's a state of mind. Everything is a state of mind.
But is it one of those things, and I know you often talk about morale, how it can just be gone like that, is it one of those things that quite often you don't even realise it's happening? Because it's hard to look at Jordan Henderson and think that he's let his standards drop just because they played every game last season. But he definitely hasn't been able to get to the level he's been at over the last few seasons.
Yeah, but he did on the weekend. So you can't just turn it on. It has to be there. Do you know what I mean, Nathan? The seasons go by very quickly. You're doing great, then there's close seasons, only 6 weeks, 7 weeks, go very quick. But you're a professional footballer. You have to now get back to pre-season training and put as much into it, if not more into it, to get going again.
What is it called? Friday Firepit? Friday Fridays.
So we just put a bit more thought into dominating
miserable
comments box this morning. You gotta call it like it is.
It's Friday, like what?
The Friday Firepit.
Am I excited?
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to Stuey and Seana. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cameron and Colm.
It all happens on a Friday here, folks. Wow.
Friday Firepit.
Tis.
Warm your hat. Of all the weeks to have a firepit, today is the day.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind. I did crank up my own firepit at home a few weeks ago because I felt, this is the point of the year now where there's a sweet spot enough of.
There's no energy crisis in your gaff.
It can't be absolutely freezing, right? To have the fire pit. If it's too cold, the fire pit is of no use.
Yeah.
If it's too warm, it's pretty pointless as well. But no, we've all been put back in our box. What's happening?
What is happening?
I'll tell you what's happening.
Yeah.
Go on.
What's up?
Off the back of our new look Irish football talk at the top of the show. That was off the back of our pre-show meeting when we talked about new look. on a jersey. Jerseys, great jerseys, favourite jerseys. So we were talking about what's your favourite jersey in sport. But before we get to any of that, we were talking about the new look logo and crest for Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it is on screen there. That's the Boston American looking pub.
Pretty good.
Or, knockoff pennies, duns, whatever way you want to look at it. So we said, can we do any better than that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, step up. Cameron Hill, who has designed this look
at this.
for Irish football. Now, he has it on screen there.
You see it now in a second.
And there's a picture. There you have it on screen.
There it is in quality.
That is simplicity. That is beautiful.
4K.
The simplicity of it. The shamrock. Your favourite word underneath.
That was the one that was on the blue jersey.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. Yeah.
You basically just copied the one that was on the blue jersey.
Yeah, had it up on the screen and just kind of traced it.
It's not far off, is it?
No, it's not too far off. I was kind of thinking, what will I do? But yeah, apparently we were all meant to do it, but true to form, back in school, I was the only one to do the homework.
Well, to be absolutely fair about the whole thing, of course, it was suggested at 7:25, and we've been slightly busy.
Inspired and
whole ad break to do.
Well,
but anyway.
this is what I want to know from the artist himself. Limited time.
Yeah.
Simple A4 sheet and a pen.
Yeah.
What happened? What was the
basically,
process?
I haven't been doing much of my job today. I spent most of the day.
Performance review. Yeah.
This is my performance review. Yeah, I just, got out. I had the four, the 4 ink one.
Yes.
So I thought, I can go nuts here. All right. Put a bit of green, bit of blue, and then spent a good bit of the show drawing a shamrock.
Enjoy the way it says Cameron Hill, age redacted. That is one of the great mysteries of OTB. We'll never know Cameron's age. He's like a Jesse Lingard. He'll always be young.
Yeah.
I have the information.
I didn't know where that comparison was going, Shane. That's
always young.
Dodgy territory.
I have the pleasure of being privy to the information, but it shall not be revealed. Redacted, it shall remain the mystery. But thank you for the creation, because Adrian, it takes a lot to do that in such a short space of time, to be that creative.
Have we anything else on the list, or are we going to
I'm fine with the praise, to be honest, if that's okay.
Well, I thought about that. Well, I mean, Adrian, I did touch on it there, but I just wanted to get the art. First bit of art on the show, bit of culture, no harm, especially on a Friday.
First bit of art in the show, yeah.
What I'd like to hear, Adrian, because I can feel your impatience there. You're tapping away.
Of all the days to say the first bit of art in the show.
Colouring book.
Yeah.
That was the joke there. And so your favourite jersey, Adrian.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be football.
Go with somebody else. Cameron, come on, you've been thinking.
Shane Hannon is doing the distant thinking.
Yeah,
I like doing
a bit of
enjoy that.
As well.
Smell the fart acting.
Monaghan 1988 Ulster title winning. Simplistic, white, lovely blue collar.
Yeah.
Very simple, just the crest. Simple is best, I think, when it comes to jerseys.
Who's the sponsor?
There was no sponsor.
Oh, that wasn't pre-sponsor days, was it? Or was it just a man and couldn't get a sponsor?
Don't know. This is the new.
No, there was definitely sponsors at that point.
Not in the retro jersey I have.
Pack on the Mead jersey is one that comes to mind.
It was simple. No,
I'm not talking about that was a nice jersey, but I mean more that there were actually sponsors.
No, I think it was. See, it's simple. No, there's nothing on it. You can see a photo of it there. It's kind of you'll not be able to see it on screen. You'll have to Google
look it up. Yeah.
You Google that yourself there. We haven't prepared this item, so you just Google away.
There you go. Yeah, I haven't put a thought into it. That'll be my answer. I have to say, simple. Italian 90 Ireland jersey is an obvious answer, but too obvious maybe.
I have a few interesting ones like Trevor Giles.
Was that the one? Sorry.
Go ahead.
That wasn't the one with the perforated. Was that 88 with the perforated arm on it? I had that one at home. I think that might be my favorite.
That was the 88 one, wasn't it? Italian
Remember that with the little white purple? You're all looking with sort of blank stares as if to say perforated. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
There was a lovely. Well, I'll have to start googling now, and you can fill the air by talking about something else.
Well, I was just saying, Trevor Giles, people probably know where that's going already, but the short sleeve look, like, I mean, he broke hearts, but the way he wore that. And then 3 years later, Cameroon at the 2002 World Cup, do you remember their vest top?
Cameroon Hill,
they had a vest jersey with the black underneath t-shirt looking design. And then this kind of an unusual jersey category, a subcategory within this topic, is Manchester United's away jersey in the 2001-2 season was reversible.
I had one.
The white and the gold.
What
unusual.
It was too heavy though. What a novel idea.
And also United in 98-99 had their own Champions League jersey specifically for the Champions League and a different one for the Premier League. Marketing way ahead of their time. I thought you'd be all over that.
I think that was 88, by the way, and it's an absolute cracker jersey. It has the old crest on it that this one is sort of based on, with the orange circle around it and the green shamrock. They could have done actually worse, looking at it here, than put that shamrock in the middle of that crest.
I like that shamrock.
More authentic. I had that jersey at home, the little crossover collar on it with the orange line through it. Absolute belter.
I love that
of a jersey.
You see, I actually really do love hearing people's stories about their favourite jerseys because it brings back
I'm straight back
memories.
to
absolutely. Incorporating the sponsor into the jersey is an art form in itself. I love when it really blends well with the jersey, because like having the sponsor there and having a clunky, I think it's the one problem I'd have with like the old Westmeath ones, is that big yellow square for the Renault kind of took away from it just a touch.
I don't know why they did that for a couple of years, and then somebody went, oh, do you know what, we'll just put that in white and stick it on the jersey, and now it looks class.
Yeah, it looks way better. I love that. Yeah, it's a subtle little a Sousson class.
A Sousson. Do you try in the most interviews you do just you're a bit like he says Malachy O'Rourke, you say something in French.
Yeah. Frankish.
Someone actually, Fergus Keogh wants you to do more French pronunciations here, Cameron, in the comments.
Yeah, because he gave out about my pronunciation of Non Le Cray. That's
exactly what he's mentioning here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Fergus. Okay.
Your sponsor point, totally agree with. The Lions jersey from 2001. Sponsor NTL, and for whatever reason that just worked beautifully with that jersey. So it was predominantly navy with red on the top third, let's say, and in the bottom 2/3 was navy. I was at home recently, home in Cork, and opened the cupboard, or was it home or the wardrobe?
That's an interesting story.
Well, I'm just saying it was a nice jersey. You know, that's the whole topic. Yeah. You can get on board with it or you can't. I can move on.
That's the whole topic.
If you're not into this,
that's the whole topic. It's the defensive tone now.
Look, Cork. Adrian, cynicism is the easiest position.
I'm just saying that
creativity is
cool
the
story, bro.
Respect,
you
know
what the kids say.
I can move on. If people aren't feeling it, there's no problem at all.
My favourite jerseys are people who follow or are kind of rugby hipsters like myself. The sevens ones used to be back in like the 2010s, used to be absolutely fire. You'd look at them and it was the great pity of us not being really sevens material, is that we never got our chance to do it in the early 10s, but some of them are sublime. But I think the best jerseys are the Argentina World Cup away ones in rugby. Argentina
do a good jersey across the board.
I think they really get it right, don't they? But the 2015 World Cup one is sublime.
What was that?
It's just really subtle dark blue, but kind of fades to a lighter blue down the jersey. Oh,
nice.
Stop the lights.
Oh, Colm's hiding.
We have a comment ourselves here. Colm, pick up the jersey to your right. Irish women's jersey. Lovely.
Yeah. Very nice.
Sign there.
Do you know what we could do for next week's show? Because it would tap into your outrageousness. And if everybody's on board for this,
my outrageousness.
Wear the most outrageous jersey that you have in the cupboard at home.
Oh wow! Ooh. Okay. It has to be a jersey.
And I think about this specifically because I know exactly what I'm wearing. Yeah, it has to be a jersey.
I have one.
Next Friday.
I have one.
Next Friday. What do you think?
Right,
I bought a Hurricanes jersey when I was in New Zealand, and it's a big yellow thing, and I thought, it's a bit mad, but sure, it'll be great, and I'll wear that for ages. And I think I wore it a little bit.
We have to remember to do this now next Friday. We'll do it.
No, I have one.
Oh, no show next Friday.
We have a show next Friday. It's a good point.
Oh, we don't. No, we don't.
We'll still wear them on Friday. How about that?
We'll wear them at home.
When we're back after that,
We'll send up a WhatsApp group. Here's what I'm wearing today. All right, that's good,
That's great.
Now, another topic I want to discuss, because I'm getting notes here that the next slot is ready. And I'm excited about that. I do want to give that enough time.
Yeah.
But I do like this question. Which sporting event would you go back to in time to experience again? Live.
Again? Or just generally?
One you would.
Well, you can experience it again, or one that you missed.
You wish you were there.
Maybe you loved one I
would just go straight to Westmeath 2004 Leinster final.
I think you've told me that story maybe 3 times. Yeah.
But that's it. Like 2009 Grand Slam game against Wales will be there. Thereabouts, as they say.
Pinnacle.
I wish I was alive and there for Loftus Road 1985. Barry McGuigan beats Pedrosa.
This is a different conversation, though.
No. An event I wish I was.
The parameters of this
I wasn't there.
They've just become very loose.
The parameters of the conversation should be set.
It's boring to say, I wish I was at this event again.
Well, that's what you were asked.
Yeah, but the 2013 Ulster final was great.
Just bend the rules.
I was there. I don't need to relive it again.
It's the bloody Firepit chain. You can't just bend the rules.
The better discussion is a sporting event that you.
But that's not the question that was asked.
Yeah, but it was.
Yeah, because the person who pitched it, me,
Is that what you meant?
That's what I meant.
Yeah, well, I wish I was there. For 85.
I wish I was there.
Yeah, if
well,
we could
do
go back
you know what?
and, like, if you
You might
before
have just
were born
said,
or whatever.
you could have just said
Bonus cyclone high.
I
That's what I
thought
wish
it was
you
fairly clear cut, but clearly I need to break it down
I didn't
into
understand the assignment.
simple terms.
Jesus.
That's two assignments you've missed.
I have a match programme from that fight signed by Barry McGuigan.
Oh,
wow. Viking Gale GA jersey in Denmark is a beaut. Pictures, Tommy, would be great to bring that on. Tommy. But I do like the shouts.
Yeah. By the way, the tattoo I wanted to get was the Cantona. When seagulls follow the trawler, it is because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea.
Are our audience totally unaware that we mentioned it briefly earlier, did we?
Briefly, yeah, I said that. Yeah. What sporting quote from a sporting person would you most like to get tattooed if you were so inclined? If you were forced to get a tattoo of a sporting quote.
Does that work as a pictorial version of the quote? Could you just have a trawler and a load of seagulls behind?
Oh, much better idea. You should consult Cameron for your next piece of
Then
work.
how do you know it's Cantona? Do you have to get something Cantona?
I have Cantona on the boat.
Little French flag, Cameron.
Little French flag on the
Little
boat.
French flag. Yeah, or drapeau, as they say in French.
Do you know what? I might get this tattoo and
chapeau
for
chapeau.
OTB. Yeah. I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
Would you do it for the name of content?
I would actually get my sister to maybe design it. She's a graphic designer, so she can draw it up for me.
Could Adrian do the tattoo after a few lessons? We
as
get
in
Adrian some lessons
give
of
me
the
the
tattoo.
tattoo.
Yeah, no, I don't
artist,
think that'd be
after 4 weeks.
good idea.
And
Very
then
safe,
we'll film
wouldn't
Adrian do it. Yeah, you wouldn't do it. I mean, that's so you now. Even if you were able to do it, you wouldn't do it.
That'd be ridiculous. If I was able to do it,
I feel like you would
talking
refuse
about?
on artistic
No, why would
grounds.
I do that?
I feel like you would.
Trying to think, how would you draw? How would you imagine as a tattoo, like as a picture, the Brian O'Driscoll knowledge is knowing a tomato.
Oh, it's a tomato and it's a rugby ball and.
But now wisdom is knowing
microphone.
not putting it in a fruit salad. Are you kind of? How do you make someone look reluctant to put a tomato
then don't
in
put
something?
a fruit salad in your.
But that's the
a big tattoo of Brian O'Driscoll's face.
Cameron could design the tattoo potentially because he's got priors here.
Because that was so good.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, guys.
The Viking Gales jersey is gorgeous.
Is it?
Our own Dara there just put it into the chat. That's the one that Tommy mentioned in the live YouTube comments. Oh my God.
Have a look.
Well, look, Dara found it in 10 seconds, you know.
You're telling our audience to Google.
Yeah,
There's so much going on there, but it's sublime.
We can't feed you everything.
Are you actually going to get a tat of
the
trawler? Of something?
I think I will. Yeah. I think you're genuinely within the next month or two. Yeah.
Right.
Month. Let's just put a date on it.
What
is it? 10th of March. 10th of March.
Where will you get
it?
Where in your body will you get it? This question got asked earlier. Where will you get it?
Tattoo
I got it that chap down the keys there.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I'll get it somewhere on the arm, on the left arm maybe. All my tattoos are on the left side of my body.
Are you going to be? At the rate, what age did you get your first tattoo?
I was on the J1. I was 21.
And what age are you now?
22. I'll be 30 this year.
22.
Okay, so you've 11 tattoos in 9 years.
Yeah.
At that rate of
Decent
going,
strike rate.
you're going to be busy.
Yeah, that's like as
an
many
Erling
Russell
Haaland
managers.
tattoo rate.
Do you think you'll ever stop?
Nah.
Just keep going.
Sure.
Oh,
your body's a canvas,
man.
lads. You know.
Have you any no-go areas?
One in particular. But,
have you any? That's the word. There.
Yeah, I would do. I think. Look,
where would be no-go?
The body's just a vessel. Do you know?
Would you get anything around your face or?
No, sorry, I wouldn't get it on the face.
Anything after that is fair game.
Anything after that is fair game. Yeah.
Right.
Is your philosophy the opposite to my body is a temple?
I think that's unfair.
Both, look after your body health-wise, but I mean the outside of it doesn't really matter.
But there's nothing. Why is your body not a temple if you
scribble on it like a child?
I was wondering, was vessel the opposite of temple?
The tattoos remind me of happy moments and good things.
Yeah.
So I think there's a good reason to get them. You know.
Okay.
So
proceed.
Jesus Christ! What a limp end.
Artistic sample.
The content God.
That's the Friday Firepit.
You're listening
to OTB AM.
OTB Sports Rugby.
I think Finn can pull teams apart. I think we'll get a real test against him. I'm excited about how we are able to deal with what he throws at us if he gets a good platform. But I think we'll have too much for them.
Okay, it's not.
I do think we'll still have too much for them.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
The Heineken Champions Cup is back. Leinster take on Ulster in the round of 16, Saturday, April 1st at 5:30 in the Aviva Stadium. Join the Sea of Blue for this massive inter-provincial clash. Tickets on sale now at leinsterrugby.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
Off the Balls, Cheltenham coverage kicks off this weekend thanks to Boyle Sports. Don't miss the Saturday panel, live this Saturday from 1:30 on the OTB Sports app.
With Boyle Sports, make this Cheltenham epic.
18 plus. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
18 minutes past 9, you're watching OTB AM. It's absolute mayhem behind the scenes here, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks for all the comments that have come in this morning. We'll get into those over the next while. We have a prize on offer as well for them, as you can see in front of your screens there. Yeah. And delighted to say that the people behind this absolutely beautiful production are joined us this morning. Stuey, Byrne, and I think Seana, Cooke on Zoom. Morning to you both.
Morning, Nathan. How are you?
How's it going, Seana? You got snowed in? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, the perks of living in the countryside on a farm lane.
Outside the pale or inside the pale, Seana?
Outside the pale, unfortunately.
Wow. Right. No, nothing wrong with that.
You're in good company here this morning, Seana. Let's face it. We've been talking about the book all morning. We've a competition running for the best comment of the morning that's going to win themselves a copy of the book as well. Shane is going to be the arbiter of that. I'm not sure how he's going to exactly decide.
Stuey will sign it when he's in with us as well here.
It's a beautiful production. It's a colouring book with a difference. Stuey, do you want to talk to us about how this came about, what it is?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll actually hand over to Seana because it's Shauna's baby, to be quite honest. I'm here representing my daughter who did the illustrations.
Beautiful illustration. Seana, floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Stuey. So myself and Stuey obviously met last year to have a chat about kind of combining for a game we love, and there was a few conversations back and forth. We've always, I suppose, connected on the ground of like football being this place where, you know, facilitates connections and support, and there's so much goes on around the game that's often not told or goes untold, and we wanted to really try to put something together that would help give a platform to the amazing stories around the game. And it was, I suppose, around the time of the women's team doing so well, and it was something I'd been kind of toying with in my head for a long time. And I just said to Stuey, I said, like, it'd be great to maybe put a colouring book together, maybe something that, you know, is obviously aimed at young boys and girls, but also could be picked up by a teenager or somebody older, and, you know, they can kind of connect with the game. I felt like there's been such an evolution of the game over the past 2 or 3 years in terms of like media attention and public attention. You know, and one of the things that stuck out with me was I went to a game with Olivia O'Toole last year, and we turned up at the gate, and nobody had an idea who she was. And I was thinking to myself, if that was Paul McGrath or, you know, somebody of that calibre in terms of a male, they would have known straight away. So for me, it was just about articulating that kind of connection between the past, the you know, what's going on now, and also trying to inspire the future generations. And it's great to have somebody like Stuey to work with, because everything I say, he tends to say yes to. And we just started to kind of bang our heads together. And obviously, Sky is an incredible illustrator, and I mean, myself and Stuey just kind of put the copy together. It was all Sky in terms of the illustrations. The book is beautiful because of her.
Compromise, Adrian.
Is that
good
what
relationships are all based on compromise. Yeah.
So what was the point of contention here? Was it like, because like looking through the book, there's obviously a lot of the big games are in there. The Sweden games, Scotland games represented. A lot of games going back. Was there a bit of butting heads at some point?
No. I mean, I had an idea for the edible football boot. Seana had an idea for a colouring book. Seana won. You know, it was. Is
that what happened?
No, I think when she suggested it, it kind of struck a chord immediately, because you know, part of, you know, Seana mentioned there the platform game we love. It's very much, we kind of wanted to be a platform, you know, a kind of a voice for the great people in the game, the great stories. You know, I don't think we hear enough of those things. You know, we're a little bit bombarded by celebrity at the moment, like, you know, which is fine for some people, but I've pretty much had enough of it, and so has Seana, you know. And the colouring book, it's kind of it's a beautiful piece because for so many different reasons. Like, I mean, you know, when I look at my kids just even colouring it in, I could watch them for hours doing it. I mean, they could sit for hours doing it, and it really, what it does is it makes you kind of just stop and think and interact and take your time and just consume,
without it's kind of the opposite to what I suppose we're being sort of what's been thrown in our face at the moment, which is kind of constant, relentless information, if you know what I mean. So what we're trying to do is trying to re-engage maybe with the core values of the game, really, and just to kind of take your time, take 20 minutes, take 30 minutes, read something, watch something, and try and consume it in that way. And when Seana said, mentioned the colouring book, and it's been a process for both of us. We've had to kind of go through the whole logistics of where do we start, how do we get it up and running, where do we go, and we both just had to learn on the job. But it's been a great experience, and it's a fabulous piece, I have to say. It's turned out really well. I'm very proud because my daughter did the illustrations.
I was going to say how close to life they look. Like Emma Byrne there, for example, looks
absolutely
like it's a photograph.
Yeah. So it's a technique kind of whereby, see, my daughter's actually in my own place at the moment doing work experience, and it's based on a photograph, but they put their own stint on it, if you know what I mean. And if you look at the images in detail, you'll see, and hopefully people will get the book. You'll see the detail in the eyes and around the mouth and the shadowing and all that kind of thing. So it's sort of it's an illustration, and it's open to interpretation for the person who's colouring it in, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I don't think, looking at it, and I don't think you could have been any bit better to illustrate it. So it was a handy coincidence that it was close to home. Yeah. Just, you mentioned there about like having enough of celebrity, and you can both jump in this one. Just in what can you tease that out a bit? Is it a sporting sense, a general sense?
Well, why do you need Kim Kardashian when you have Katie McCabe? Don't you know?
Shauna, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I can jump in there. I think for a lot of young people nowadays, there's such a pressure to be on all these different social platforms and just be putting like training sessions up on Instagram, and you have to be on TikTok, and now there's Be Real and Facebook, and there's so much of life consumed by that now. And I think it's so easy to fall into the habit of being, influenced by, here's what I eat in a day, or here's all the, 20 million things I do in a day. And for young people, I think to come away from that and kind of maybe they can often feel the pressure and, negative emotions. And what we wanted to do was create something in Game We Love that I suppose could just kind of allow people to take a step back, and not feel that pressure in terms of read stories and resonate with stories that aren't about the top 10 tips to become the next Ronaldo, or here's a video of someone doing 5 million keep uppies. It's just more about giving people something that they can connect with and feel positive about, and that's where the colouring book comes in as well. Like as Stuey was saying there about watching his kids. My niece was up with me at the weekend, and she's now interested in football whatsoever. As much as I've tried, she's now interested. And the colouring book was on the kitchen table, and I noticed she opened it and just started to colour in, and we started to have a conversation, not just about the people in the book, but also there's quotes in there. And as a 9-year-old, I started to ask her about the quotes and what they meant to her. And the conversation went on for about an hour, but it was an hour of no TikTok, of no television, of just the two of us connecting. And that's what we want. We want it to be a piece that will bring people together, but also maybe, it's a way for young people who maybe, naturally aren't interested in participating in sports per se, but they can connect with the game in other ways. So that's kind of my angle on it. I don't know about you, Stuey.
That's a very good point, actually, because it can be football can be a very intimidating sport. I mean, I remember even growing up myself, as a young boy and schoolboy, it can be a very highly competitive thing, and it can be anxious and all the things that come with that. And to Shauna's point there, there's so much more going on around the game than just having to be a player and having to make it to the top level. That's the less than 1%. It's the game brings so much in terms of positivity to people's lives in ways that you can't even sort of fathom. And the kind of point of all is that we want to learn what it does, what the game brings to people. It's not anti-celebrity, but it's. I think I want to hear stories about people who have experienced sort of life-changing things person in the corner or a person in your job, and there are, we've tapped into that, and there are going to be stories coming down the stream that, and some fantastic stories as well, and the game has given so much back to people. It's given a lot to me, and that's part of what this is about. This is me trying to give back in a way that I feel I can contribute to in a way that I'm probably passionate about as well. I mean, I constantly get asked if, about going into coaching and management. It wasn't for me, so I've been trying to figure it out in my own head. How can I give back in a way that I feel I can kind of feel positive about, and this is the start of it.
I love that connection piece, I must say, that Seana spoke about there. And I have a 4-year-old at home and I have a 6-year-old, and this will definitely, we'll be sitting down and we'll be going through it and we'll be talking about the stories and we'll be doing bits of colouring. It's absolutely in the wheelhouse of everything. I think that's and the opportunity to speak as well, Sean, is a thing that I don't know how to introduce the conversations to either of them about here's how this team got to this place. Like, I could sit down and bore you with a lot of detail about that, but you're going to shut down pretty quickly, whereas this is a really brilliant door into that stuff.
Yeah, for sure, and I think especially for young females, obviously, there's a lot of challenges, for females in life, and it's about having those conversations as well with young girls. I was having one with my niece at the weekend, she was asking me like little things like, how come they didn't get the kits supplied, and why don't they not see them on television as much as the boys? So it's about having those conversations and being real about it, and giving them the landscape as it is now, and talking about where we wanted to go and why we need both young boys and girls to have the inspiration and the belief that they can change the game. There's been women in the background, like I'm thinking of players like Emma Byrne, you see in the book, and Olivia O'Toole, but there's also people like Claire Scanlon, Ciara Grant, Yvonne Tracy, who we just ran out of pages for, maybe in part 2. Exactly. I think about that. We're doing a lot of hard work when nobody was watching. So, I really want to dedicate it to them, and all the women that have put in the long hours and the passion and the pain to bring football to where it is today.
It's mad, because we had Nora Stapleton and Benny Callan from Sport Ireland on the show on Wednesday, on International Women's Day, and we were talking about that, and you mentioned the word competitiveness, Stuey, and how that can put young girls and young boys off sport generally. But something like this is a great in for them. As you say, Seana, your niece, no interest in football whatsoever, but it can take something small like this to get them interested and realise that it doesn't have to all be competitive. It can be enjoyable as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important. There's so much opportunity within the game, outside of participation, and there's an awful lot of opportunity for young kids, especially to bring their creativity to the game. That's what we want to harness. It's that ability to connect and interact with the game, and not feel that competitiveness and pressure to perform or play. I think the more we can bring that into the game, the better it'll be.
And there's art in here for adults as well. I've noticed that the modern trend towards a bit of Zen time, a bit of me time.
Yeah, that's for you, Adrian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Hard day's work. Go home and colour that in.
My life is. I need this. I need more of this. It's $7.99, and where should people go and pick it up?
It's available online. I'm sure we can give you the link to share it out.
We'll stick it out in our Twitter account. It's probably the best way to do it. It's a brilliant production. I genuinely, I'm really excited to get it home and sit down with the kids and go through it, genuinely. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Before we let you go, Rovers hoovering up every good player in the league. Seana, is that's the only WNL preview we need, is it?
I was going to pretend I was gone.
Sorry, the snow is just the line's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, it's going to make for one hell of a competitive league, and that's what we want. There's been a lot of attention, I think, and interest in what has happened our season. So I hope that it'll bring a bit of balance. Other teams have still kept really good cores, and I'm really hoping to see more competitive games over the course of the season.
Yeah. And I see there's a lot of interest with Sarah Rowe as well across the papers today, with Bowes, so lots of interesting talking points around that, as there will be at Talca Park tonight. Couldn't have had you in at a better day, Stuey.
Yeah, I think there's I think Rovers are under pressure to get a win, aren't they, really? I mean, it's going to be that's a difficult game for them. Going to Talca, Shels playing well, to be fair. Results not necessarily going their way, but just being pipped by a goal here and there. So they're in a good place. Shels playing wise, and big pressure on Rovers. But it's early, Adrian. I think we need to remember as well. Derry got off to a flyer last year. I think they were at this stage 6 points clear. I think they're 7 points clear now.
Yeah.
And it all sort of, May tends to be a very significant month in this season, in any League of Ireland season, because it's sort of pre-Europe. It can have an effect on the mindset, and it things tend to happen in that month. So, but I do feel it's going to be a competitive league. I don't normally say that, and it would be a criticism I've had of the league in the last 5-6 years, or maybe more, because not to talk down the likes of Dundalk, Cork, Rovers, they're all doing their stuff. I think we need everybody else to start catching up, and I think that's starting to happen.
Duffer thrives in these scenarios, doesn't he? Rovers coming to Talca on a Friday night.
Yeah, he does. Look, he's to be fair to him, I think he's doing a wonderful job, not just with the team he has and the resources he has, but I think he's playing his part. He's doing, I think, what we wanted him to do. We kind of wanted to get a personality into the, and to be quite honest, he's surprised me as well in how he's got he's got that air of you don't know what he's kind of gonna say, and I like that. I think we lack that sort of sometimes in the game here, and it's always good to have those personalities.
Yeah, we settled for the three-way tie that it was going into the last day of the season last year in the WNL. We would settle for a title race like that in either of them over the course of the season. Thanks a million to you both. Best of luck with the book. We are going to put the link up on our Twitter page, and thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, lads.
Cheers, Seana. Thanks. It's 9:35 OTBAM. By the way, I want to let you know that today almost 300 busking events are going to take place across Ireland, supporting Today FM's The Big Busk for Focus Ireland. It's the second year of the campaign, and the main goal of raising vital funds to help in the fight to end homelessness in Ireland, which has shot up by 30% in the last year. Nearly 12,000 people currently homeless, thousands more at risk of losing their home, and over about 3,500 of those are children. It gives you an idea of the scale of the problem, and help is needed now more than it ever was, and that's why campaigns like the Big Busk are so important. And you saw on your screen there the ways to get involved if you want to donate, or indeed if you're listening to us today. todayfm.com/busk is the quick fast way to go and get the details for that. But as I said, a huge amount of events, 300 busking events over the course of the day. OTB AM with Gillette Labs, get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. Have you picked a winner, by the way?
Yeah, Chris has come in with a comment. Has anyone ever noticed how much Colm looks like a magician? Which is a fair point. I think it's a fair point. The dark and mysterious look.
A specific magician?
He doesn't look like a magician
No,
now. He's
just
not happy.
generally speaking.
He's not happy.
No.
He's generally not happy either, Stuey, to be fair. That's
I thought it was
commonality.
It was very good point. Something I hadn't thought of before. So Chris, congratulations. We'll get Stuey to sign a copy.
Chris, Shane will get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with him, or however that works, and we'll get your address, and we'll get you the copy of this beautiful book out to you as well. Monday's show, the world famous performance rankings, all the rugby and football reaction as well. Shane and Kenny Cunningham are going to be insured. We had an email, by the way, which we don't have time to discuss now. We never thought about it in advance, from somebody. We were chatting about the Lansdowne Road houses when Kenny was in with us on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the old cottages that used to be in the old Lansdowne Road?
On the corner.
And we were discussing whether were they houses, were they clubhouses.
And a Tudor look.
Somebody from the US got in contact and said, my grandparents used to live in one of those houses, and had a huge long story about how important it was to them in their lives.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I remember being in them actually after one of the games. I think that you used to go in them
for a cup of tea with the neighbours.
Well, actually, yeah. I think they were asleep upstairs.
I think they did move into a clubhouse maybe in their later years, or some version of that. What are you asking me to do?
Oh, Chris, the winner of the competition, if you DM us your details on Twitter, we can get in touch and give you the copy of the book. So congrats.
Give whose Twitter? Our Twitter handle. Yeah, add off the ball.
Yeah.
I'm
relaying
what I'm happy to do it. What Colm is telling us, he's telling me to do this. I'm doing it, and he's still giving out to me. Stewie, do you ever have a manager?
I still got time to go into Pat Kenny, do I?
Is that what you're off to now? Is it? You know this show too well. 9:37. We're leaving you with Nathan's conversations with Rachel O'Sullivan and Peter O'Mahony. Have a wonderful weekend.
Welcome back to Thursdays Off the Ball. If you missed Pat Ryan and Anthony Nash, you can listen back to the full podcast. Just get onto the OTB GAA stream wherever you listen to your podcast. Loads of good stuff up there. If it's hurling you're looking for, there is 2 episodes of the hurling pod from this week with Will and the lads. Great stuff from the football pod also with James and Paddy and Tommy, and some great analysis from Colm Boyle from Monday night. So all that waiting for you right now. In the Europa League, it's Manchester United 1, Real Betis 1, with around 40 minutes gone at Old Trafford. United went in front on 6 minutes. Marcus Rashford with a brilliant finish from about 12 yards out, smashed it into the roof of the net. Very calm finish from Rashford for a unchanged Manchester United from the defeat against Liverpool. But Real Betis have come back into it. United quite dominant in possession, but then a mistake. Casemiro gave the ball away, and a beautiful finish from a Jose Perez. Remember him of Leicester City and Newcastle United, over on the right hand angle of the penalty area, and smashed it low right in off the far post, beat David De Gea. So heading towards half time, Manchester United 1, Real Betis 1. Earlier it finished 2-2 between Sporting Lisbon and Arsenal, and West Ham 2-0 winners against Larnaca in the Europa Conference League. Not going particularly well for the Irish at the Players' Championship. Seamus Power 1 over par. He is through 6 holes of his opening round. Shane Lowry 3 over par through 10. Rory McIlroy finished up on 4 over par. Chad Ramey, pretty much an unknown PGA Tour player, leads the way on 8 under par, 1 shot clear of Colin Morikawa. Now though, we want to turn our attention to the WSL, and a huge weekend in the WSL with the top 2 in the table clashing on Sunday, with Chelsea take on Manchester United. To chat about this, delighted to be joined by Rachel O'Sullivan from Girls on the Ball. How are you keeping, Rachel?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So before we talk about what's going to come up this weekend, last night the 2 teams that were in the Conti Cup final were back in action. Arsenal, the winners, a good win for them. Chelsea had a victory as well. Is this a 2-horse race for the league between Chelsea and Manchester United, or are Manchester City and Arsenal still in this? City 3 points behind United, Arsenal 6 points behind United, but with a game in hand.
I think it's still a 4-horse race. They have to play each other still as well, and it's really hard to read. We've been used to Man United in the past kind of doing well at the beginning of the season and fading in the second half, and so far that hasn't happened. Chelsea are serial winners. Manchester City have form for creeping up the league without people really looking over their shoulder when they should be. And of course, Arsenal are still in there fighting for Champions League. So I don't think it's a 2-horse race yet.
Arsenal have some momentum now as well, having been beaten by Chelsea after the international break. A really strong response in the Conti Cup final. It was interesting, Emma Hayes' comments afterwards, a little bit of complacency she felt in that Chelsea performance. Did last night's victory for Chelsea in the league, does that erase the memories of Sunday? Was there any signs of complacency last night? Was this a rejuvenated Chelsea that beat Brighton?
It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, they did, of course, dominate the match, but you would expect that when they're playing Brighton. But it was quite a change side from the side we saw against Arsenal. But I'd say they very much put that Conti Cup final to bed. They've still got a lot to play for. They've still got the league to play for, the FA Cup. They're still in Champions League. So I think they'll very much have turned their heads to that and tried to put it behind them. They knew a win last night was so important, obviously not just for keeping their title hopes going, but knowing they're coming up against Manchester United at the weekend and getting winning ways again. So, it's I wouldn't take too much from last night's game, to be totally honest, just because I think it's going to be a very different game to this weekend, and it was a very different game to the previous weekend, but important nonetheless for them to be getting wins again.
Is Chelsea-Arsenal the biggest rivalry in the WSL now?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I think the Manchester derbies are pretty big as well, but Arsenal-Chelsea, there's always some spice to that game. And I just
thought Emma Hayes' comments after the game were so interesting. When I read them initially, when she spoke about complacency, I thought, that's fair enough. All-conquering Chelsea, they get beaten by Arsenal. She's acknowledging her players weren't at it. She's speaking to the dressing room more than anything else. But I didn't watch the interview and the extended interview where she must have mentioned 10 times about all the trophies that Chelsea had won. We've just won so many trophies. We've just won, when you win as many trophies as we have, this is what happens. There was most definitely Arsenal are here celebrating. It's a League Cup. talk to us about the league, talk to us about the FA Cup, talk to us about the Champions League. These are the things that we're interested in.
Yes, there's definitely an edge to that, and I think Emma Hayes hates nothing more than losing to Arsenal, and that is very, very obvious. And I think, you know, the comments were telling. I think she was also caught off guard maybe a little bit, and maybe wasn't quite prepared to be coming out and speaking about a loss. You know, she kind of mentioned as well that there was nothing really she could do on the side of the pitch when she saw that her players weren't at it. She kind of maybe threw her team under the bus a little bit. So yeah, the comments were certainly interesting, and I think it is because of that rivalry. There is always something there. We've seen comments from managers in previous fixtures between Arsenal and Chelsea and how they've kind of bitten back at each other in the media. So yeah, there's always an extra level to that fixture.
Yeah, she obviously has her own history with Arsenal as well. I'm wondering how much of that was in the Katie McCabe rumours around January as well, that would this destabilise Arsenal, because it did feel as though it was a very bad transfer window in the end for Arsenal, obviously decimated with the loss of Meath and Miedema, but all the talk about Russo, Katie McCabe potentially leaving the club, and in the end McCabe ends up staying, Russo doesn't arrive, they're looking a bit lacking up top, and you sort of wonder, was it a happy camp for a few weeks there?
Yeah, that window didn't go well for Arsenal, and the Katie McCabe rumour and transfer bid that came out of it wasn't actually a rumour, I think, was a big surprise, I think, to a lot of people. But there was no way Arsenal were going to let her go. There was just no chance of that happening. I think no matter how much Chelsea bid for her. But it was a really interesting move from Emma Hayes, and definitely one that probably, yeah, like you said, maybe destabilised Arsenal just a little bit. So maybe there were some tactics in that. The Alessia Russo one was a really interesting one, because of course they did allegedly offer Stina Blackstenius as part of that deal, which wouldn't have done a lot for the striker's confidence. She'd been struggling for form in front of goal already, and then to have that come out that her team were trying to fob her off to Manchester United to get Russo in wouldn't have helped. But she scored in the Conti Cup semi-final against Manchester City in extra time. She scored in the Conti Cup final, a great goal, and she scored again last night. So that is what Arsenal are going to want to see, because they have really been struggling in front of goal.
Is the expectation that Chelsea will go back in for Katie McCabe in the summer?
Potentially, because, you know, I think that we are going to see some players leave Chelsea in the summer. There's been some rumours around Eriksson and Harder. This maybe hasn't been the most settled Chelsea team that we've seen. We're so used to them being such a cohesive bunch. We're so used to, you know, your substitutes coming off the bench seamlessly. And that hasn't really been the case for Chelsea this season. And despite being back to second in the league now and still in Champions League, it's not been their best in terms of performances. So it's always been a difficult job, and Emma Hayes has done a very good job of keeping a lot of stars happy in her team. But, you know, there are rumblings and rumours of players potentially looking to move. So they could, if Eriksson goes, and Eriksson has kind of been moved between centre back and left full back, there could potentially be a position there for Katie McCabe. You know, they'd be very lucky to have her, I think, at the club. It wouldn't be a far move for her, but, you know, maybe that was also a case of the fact that she wasn't getting a huge amount of playing time at Arsenal. So maybe she's going to stake her claim. Steph Catley's looking to be injured for a couple of games. I don't know, it's moving parts, but I think at the moment she appears to be, and always has appeared to be, a gunner through and through. But you know, Chelsea's definitely tempting.
So this game on Sunday, 12:30 kickoff, Chelsea against Manchester United. United on 35 points, Chelsea on 34 points, but Chelsea have a game in hand. Both these sides have only lost once in the league all season. How are you calling it?
I feel like Chelsea are serial winners. They're the only side Manchester United haven't beaten in a competitive fixture. You know, United have gotten one over on the other teams, the other top teams. They're in the best position to beat them than they've ever been, I think. I think it might be a very close match. And you never know. I feel a lot of it's going to come down to mentality. Chelsea are known as the mentality monsters. They know how to get across the line even when they're not playing well. But that loss in the Conti Cup final is not that long ago. It's a really tough one to call, to be honest. My head says Chelsea will pull it out of the bag. My heart says United might get one over on them this time.
One last thing, Vera Pauw, interesting comments off the back of a Karen Duggan article in the Irish Times, which I think sort of followed on from her comments on Coigig about Ireland's style of football, saying that our manager should abandon the low block, trust her central defenders and set Katie McCabe and Denise O'Sullivan free. Vera Pauw told reporters yesterday at a Sky International Women's Day event that she's a bit disappointed, especially hearing it from a player who's retired. I'm sure if you have enough insight in the game, you think, for example, Denise and Katie being too far away from each other, they're probably too close to each other, because Denise is literally 5 minutes away from Katie. So actually, it's the opposite, and goes deep, in fairness to Vera Pauw, into her belief in her system. It's interesting because we have got to a stage where everyone wants to get to now around this team, where it's not about facilities, it's not about resources. There's actually a good insight into the tactics of this group. And Ireland are incredibly strong defensively, but now as we get closer to the World Cup, people are questioning how are they going to score enough goals to win games in a knockout competition. It doesn't sound as though Vera Pauw is going to change tack anytime soon.
I can't see her doing that, to be honest. I think she's fairly set in her ways with what's gotten Ireland so far, which I can understand. But it is a different kettle of fish when you're in a tournament. You need to be scoring goals, and they're going to be coming up against some tough opposition. But we've seen them do it against Australia before, but they know they can. But I agree, like, that's probably the area that'd be the most concerning, is where are the goals going to come from. But yeah, I can't, to be honest, see her changing her tactics. And I think it might also be relatively new for her for people to start delving into that side of things. You know, we've talked a lot about how far they come and how historic it is, but people are going to get into the nitty gritty now and start questioning that area of the game. So they're going to need to be ready for that.
All right, Rachel, great stuff. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Rachel O'Sullivan there from Girls on the Ball, looking ahead to the weekend's WSL action. It's half-time at Old Trafford. Manchester United 1, Real Betis 1. Betis hitting the post there just before half-time. Almost an own goal from a Manchester United player, but 1-1 at half-time. Lots more to come on that between now and 10 o'clock. And John Giles as well, taking us through the football show. That Peter O'Mahony has taken time out of his busy schedule to chat to us. How are you keeping, Peter?
Very good, thanks. How are you, lads?
You're talking to us because Aviva is giving one lucky Irish sports fan the chance to win a VIP experience for two people to every game at the Aviva Stadium from now until the end of July, which obviously includes some rather big games, including the visit of England next week. If you want to enter, simply visit aviva.ie/best seat in the house. I say your busy schedule. I've actually no idea if it's a busy schedule on a day like this, 3 days away from match day. What is the schedule like in a day like this?
Yeah, we've had a busy day. We were in early. We have a lot of meetings and stuff on this is normally our Wednesday, so Thursday today with the Sunday game, and big day training. Yeah, so we finished training maybe just before lunch, and we had a bit of stuff to do in the gym afterwards. And here I am.
Here you are, ready to rock. It's funny, when I was saying you were coming on, anyone I spoke to, what age is he now? What age is he now? I'm like, I was 33. It's like, for some reason we all seem to feel you're a little bit older than 33. You've been around the block quite a bit. The one thing that comes up is competition, and this time now we see Ryan Baird is putting some pressure on. This has been a sort of constant throughout your career that people almost, I don't want to say take you for granted, but a new star comes on the block, we start talking about them, give them a chance, throw them in. Yeah, Peter O'Mahony's always in that team. How do you feel about the constant competition? Do you feel you always need it, or at times in your career would you have had more comfort in knowing that you were an automatic selection?
Oh, look, this has been the way it is. In the Irish back row for long before I started playing with Ireland. You go back to people that played in the back row. The team that I came into, guys like Ferris and Heaslip and Sean O'Brien, and the list goes on up to the current. I suppose a few years ago, then obviously you had guys like Dan Levy, Jordy Murphy, CJ obviously, and then you're coming up into the group of back rowers that we have at the moment, who are an awful shower of freaks is the only way to call them. Some of the best players in the world at the moment, and it's an incredible privilege to be able to play alongside these guys as well as all the other guys that I've been lucky enough to take the pitch with.
I was reading an interview which I think from last year where you were talking about how you pride yourself in being very coachable, which it's such an important lesson, I think, probably for players of any age coming through, that different coaches come in, different ideas, that no matter who it is that's looking at you, you can say to them, well, whatever you want to do, coach me and I can do it.
Yeah, it certainly is. And look, if you want to have a long career, it's got to be something you've got to be able to play ball, and adapt and change things. And I've certainly had to do that plenty of times, be able to change my game. And I've certainly always had, I suppose, the cornerstones of my game that I knew were very, very strong. But I've always had stuff that I've had to work really hard at, and I've been lucky. I've had a lot of consistency. I've only just found out there 3 coaches for Ireland, which is over the space of 12 years, is quite good, compared to my club scenario, obviously. So we've had some great consistency. So and obviously I've been very lucky with the coaches I've had. So look, it's certainly hugely important, and it's something that is very important to me.
What are the bits of your game then that you've really honed in on, particularly over the last few years, where you felt, Andy Farrell coming in, probably a slightly different style of rugby than what's gone before under Joe Schmidt? What are the bits that you thought, to keep myself here front and centre, these are the bits I need to improve?
Yeah, well, first of all, the bits you've got to work on to keep you there is the things you're really, really good at, and that's what people lose sight of sometimes. When they think, I've got to do this better and that better, and I'm not very good at this, and I need to work really hard on that, and you lose sight of every team that I've been picked for, or every player that gets picked for Ireland at different points and their club or whatever. You get picked for a reason, and you don't forget that reason. So you first of all, you need to work really hard on things that that you're good at, and stay at them. And then you can figure out little areas that you need to improve on, but the big rocks are where most of your time is spent.
Those rocks, have they been constant throughout your career? When you look back at trying to break through in your early 20s, the main pillars of your character, of what make you a player, have you remained pretty steady with them?
Yeah, I have, I remember it kind of goes back to, I remember having a meeting with Brian Hickey, who was coaching me in Con at the time, and I remember he wrote out the starting Ireland 15, and then he wrote out another 15 that could potentially be big for Ireland at some point, and then he wrote out a third 15, and I was in there, and he said, like, well, what makes you different to all these people that makes you end up here? And I had to go away and think about it, and where was my age, and figure that out, and then go after it as hard as I could. And
what did you figure out when you were in that position then? What are the things you thought, if I want to go from that third page to that first page?
I knew things like set piece were unbelievably important, whether you go back to the 90s or further back to today. You know what I mean? Set piece ball is ball you cherish, and set piece would be a strong point in my game. Be it line out, be it scrum, be it kickoff. They would be bits that I would work very hard on, and I suppose they were bits that I knew I had to be very, very good at to get picked in the teams that I wanted to be picked in. So there were areas that I went after. Obviously, then you have things like poaching, tackling, your carry. These are things you need to add to the armory or certainly sharpen all the time. So they were the things that I went after. That sounds like everything in rugby, but for a back row, it's important to be over lots of things.
Yeah, those freaks alongside you in the back row, it looks like it comes quite easy to them.
Yeah, well, look, they've come in and they've figured it out really quick. You know what I mean? You look at guys like Quinlan. He looks like he's been playing rugby for 15 years, the way he plays, and again, incredibly coachable, always picked out for doing things right. Rarely puts a foot out of place. Josh, no different. Jack Conan, identical. I know that Josh and Jack have been around for a bit longer, but you see how good they are, how dynamic they are, how good they can be. It's it's very, very impressive, and it seems to be getting picked up younger and younger in guys. As I said, Caelan is a great example of it.
The talk ahead of Sunday is that maybe this is the best Scottish team of a generation. They started with 2 wins. Maybe previous Scottish teams would have rolled over with the way they started against France, but they fought back and were very unlucky not to win that. We're 10 years on from 2013. I think yourself and Conor Murray are maybe the only survivors who started that game over in Murrayfield, which was a tough old day for everybody. What's your assessment of this Scottish side, and what are the sort of conversations you're having with Irish players who maybe haven't seen a Scotland of this level before?
Well, look, I mean, we do our work and we do our analysis, obviously, and we've looked back over obviously November. Their performances there were very, very good. Obviously, their last 3 games, you see how good they can be with their attack, their set piece. I don't have to go to the younger guys and say, "Well, look, they've really improved," or they've always been very, very good attacking wise. We've known that from as long as I've been playing with them. It's always a difficult challenge to contain them defensively from our point of view. And look, we're going to have to do our homework, and we know for a fact going away in the Six Nations is a very difficult thing to do to get a win, and to go to somewhere like Murrayfield is obviously even more hostile, more difficult, and guys understand that. I think it's important for the older guys to be able to tell the guys what it's like, going to Murrayfield. Obviously the anthems, Flower of Scotland, how hostile it is.
The anthems are obviously a story against Italy. Flower of Scotland, when the music stops and the crowd just take over. Now that you're a bit more established in your career, do you pause? Do you enjoy moments like that? Do you listen to that? Do you think, wow, this is something not many people get to experience?
Oh, it's incredible. It would be hard to argue that it's not, the best anthem, certainly from our point of view, away from home.
What? The French anthem, Peter?
I know, but when the bagpipes drop, it's an incredible place to be in Murrayfield, I have to say. It is a difficult one to pick out one, but
so you're going Scottish, French. I presume you're going Scottish, French, Italian, and then the other one.
The Welsh one is very good as well. When the millennium is closed and the whole thing is rocking. It's hard. It's hard. They're all brilliant, to be fair.
The problem with Flower of Scotland is it's so good you nearly find yourself singing along with it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, jeez, it's hard to refrain sometimes. You have to remember where you are. Jesus, we can't be doing that.
Just on that experience that you're bringing then, there's obviously a huge amount of, and there's a big leadership group within that Irish squad. Is there a spot in the week where you're the guy who's standing up talking to the group?
There's a spot in the week if I feel like there's a spot in the week for me to say something, or if I feel like I have something to say or give.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.